It's a Tuesday morning. Welcome to the AM News here on the AM Show. My name is Pakwesi Shandov. So, very first story. The Trade Union Congress is calling for a total overhaul of Ghana's pension scheme, as it says, and a few privileged persons are benefiting from the sweat and labor of others. Speaking at a news conference in Accra, Secretary General of the TUC, Dr. Yauban, said the current system does not provide a level playing field for workers.
We are demanding the total overhaul of pension system in Ghana to be fair. The current system is unfair to many workers. A few privileged individuals are being paid huge sums of money from the Smith scheme every month at the expense of ordinary workers who are contributing to the scheme from their meager salaries. You can't believe that one person earns 140,000 every month from a scheme which pays 300 Ghana cedis for people. And so the essence of social security and national insurance is completely gone. What is social security about a scheme which pays 300 Ghana cedis? And I can tell you, if it were not the board which actually even push it further to 300, there will be some people who are earning 100 Ghana cedis or 150. Then somebody on the same scheme is earning 140,000. This does not exist anywhere. If it were an occupational scheme, it may be understandable. But on a social security and national insurance trust, we should change it. So, comrades, even workers who do not contribute towards the pension scheme, we have some workers in this country who do not contribute at all to the pension scheme. They receive better pensions compared to those who are contributing to SNET. This has to change, comrades.
Meanwhile, President of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, Reverend Isaac Owusu, has commended teachers for the massive support they offered in the build-up to negotiations with government over the cost of living allowance. He says the support helped in getting their results. There's more in Martina Bugre's report.
Reverend Isaac Owusu commended the teachers in a speech at the closing ceremony of a week professional development workshop organized by NAT in collaboration with the Canadian Teacher Federation for teachers in the Northern, Savannah and Northeast regions. The training was to improve the pedagogical skills of teachers, especially those in hard-to-reach communities. It targeted 4 core areas. Reverend Owusu said the 15% cost of living allowance is not salary increasing, assuring the teachers negotiations for 2023 salary is ongoing.
I am telling you on authority that we were successful in this fight because of your willingness and the grassroots. We were successful because we allow the structures to work. The 15% COLA is not a salary increment. The salary increment for 2023 is still ongoing. We are yet to determine the minimum wage, which will pave way for us to start negotiation for salary increment for 2023. So this one is pushing us effective July 1 to 35 December. But then we will finish negotiation for the 2023 salary increment, so that January the COLA will go and then we'll go ahead with the new salary increment.
Deputy General Secretary in charge of Education and Professional Development, Dagbando Kwame, said the training was designed to update teachers' professional knowledge and skills to improve teaching and learning.
Under the Akakpo project, teachers serving in deprived or underserved areas are given special training to improve their teaching skills and creativity. The course also emphasizes on gender issues, inclusive education, ICT, and encourages greater community participation in the development of education in their respective communities.
The Regional Director of Education, Dr. Peter Tifua, urged the teachers to pass on the knowledge acquired to those who have not had the opportunity to attend the training.
As we have come to learn whatever we have learned over here, if we keep it to ourselves, it's of no use. I think I said this at the opening ceremony. And so, as we go back to our various schools, to our various offices or wherever we find ourselves, it moves us to cascade this knowledge down to those who perhaps do not have this opportunity to be here. And so that we together can move education forward in our region.
Former Chief of Staff Kojo Mpene is asking President Akufo-Addo to consider a reshuffle immediately. He says government has limited time to renew the trust of Ghanaians as they head to the polls in the 2024 elections.
I also stated that I believe there should be a reshuffle. But of course, I'm not the president. You know, reshuffle is a priority, is the prerogative of the president.
Yeah, but why must that be a priority for the president now?
No, I sit back and see how the different ministers are working. And it's me believing that some of them are not working well. And they should be either moved from where they are. At times you are the boss, you see all of them. You could see that maybe if I move this person from position A to position B, he can work better. At times you also say, no, let him drop this, even if it's my brother or whoever, for the benefit of all of us, let him bring somebody in. New ideas, always good for the society.
And do we have to resize at this point too?
Resize?
Bring it down.
At this stage,
it's too late?
Yes. You have it 2.5 years or so.
Anyway, right.
If I were him,
right.
I would resign.
You still hold that view?
I still hold that view.
Even in the face of the explanation he's giving?
Well, you can always give an explanation. Right. Why not? And I'm not doubting his explanation. Right. But I'm saying if I were in his position, because I find it untenable to go and sit with the IMF, because I've stated it so many times that is not the way to go. So what new thing am I going to tell them? Go and say them, assuming they were to ask me. They don't do right. that. Assuming they were to ask me, oh, why are you now coming to talk to us? Something? Oh, I've changed my mind. Well, I can say that. But what would they think about me? You
feel his presence may affect the negotiations?
I don't know.
Right. But you comparing what happened, for instance, during the Kufuor era, when you turned to HIPIC, and looking at our decision to go to the IMF, for instance, do you feel that the conditions are the same, and that looking at that experience?
When Kufuor came, we were broke. The country was totally broke. The records are there. Even within government, within his government, there were those of them who said, no, we're a proud nation, so we shouldn't go to declare ourselves HIPIC. He listened to everybody, but it's a responsibility. And the books were read to him, he looked at it and told them, look, I'm going to HIPIC. If there's any of you who believe that that's a wrong decision, you have the liberty to resign. And we went to HIPIC, and the outcome we all know.
But for instance, we've heard from the likes of former President John Dramani Mahama, who've also waded into the performance of the economy. He believes that the Vice President should also be taking on for that, not just the Finance Minister, but the entire economic management team.
You see, unfortunately, this political system we have,
right.
The Vice President is there. Can only remove him by him resigning or vote of no impeachment,
right.
or an election, And Vice President is not the final authority. Number one is the President. But the Vice President may resign and say, I don't believe in any IMF, and because of that I'm resigning. They have every right to do that. But he's not directly in charge of the economy.
Some say he's made a lot of promises, a reason for which,
well, unfortunately,
on grounds of principle, he should be
leaving. Yes. Unfortunately, yes. These days, I listen in the morning to some of your stations and whatnot, and they always start by referring to some of the old speeches made by the vice president and whatnot, and then follow it up with discussions on some of those issues. It's unfortunate, yes. Unfortunately, he did that. Maybe if hindsight would say that maybe if I have another opportunity, I shouldn't behave that way.
Should he apologize to Ghana?
Well, I don't know. It would be fine if he said, well, human beings, you know, we are difficult. But it wouldn't be out of place if he said, well, I was wrong. But it's always difficult, especially for the politicians.
Away from that, Chief Executive Officer of the National Ambulance Service, Professor Ahmed Zakaria, has admitted his officers demanded 600 Ghana cedis from husband of a pregnant woman who died while in transit. He has justified the demand, arguing it's standard practice. Professor Zakaria said, though the service is expected to be free, resource constraints have led them to charge users of the service for full support.
And the way our operations are carried out is such that, for example, there must be a caller who will call to the dispatch center. The dispatch center will then interrogate the caller to find out whether it's a road traffic accident or it is an inter-hospital transfer. And basically, when it's an inter-hospital transfer, they will have to discuss possibility of what we call the fuel support. Because invariably, most of the time, the ambulances are fueled, but mainly for road traffic accidents and emergencies that there's no time to even discuss what we call fuel support. In this particular case, the story we had was that because it was around the festivities, and also, you know, during that time, we still were in the COVID era where there were a lot of activities at the station level. We were told they had exhausted their fuel. And a communication went to the hospital that they didn't have enough fuel, and therefore they would need 600 cedis support of fuel. According to the crew, they were sure that they could move because the hospital was going to arrange that, either directly or indirectly with the family of the disease, of the patient for that matter. So the understanding was that they will drive to the hospital and be able to get the fuel support. When they got there, they picked the patient, and the impression was that the husband of the patient was the one who was going to provide the fuel support. They left the hospital, so with the understanding that they will pick the husband who was ready to provide the fuel support. They arrived at the hospital, at the point of picking up the patient's husband, and then they discovered that he did not have the 600 to be able to fuel the car.
Let's now turn our attention to the Ashanti region, where a mother who lives in extreme poverty is pleading for assistance to find her family a safe place to live after their mud-thatched home nearly collapsed on them at Mankraso. 50-year-old Ifia Mansa was compelled to marry again after her husband passed away and left her with 10 children. But things got worse after her new husband forcibly had sex and impregnated her physically challenged daughter, leading to his incarceration. Now the family lives dangerously in a nearly collapsing portion of a piece of structure. Lab FM's Erastus Asaredonko has more in this report.
After her husband died, the 50-year-old mother of 10 gave out some of her children for adoption and married again to take care of the rest. She moved into this mud-thatched house on the outskirts of Mankraso. But things got worse when her new husband, with whom she has 2 additional boys, forcibly defiled and impregnated her 15-year-old physically challenged girl.
I returned from my mother's funeral only to learn that my husband has turned my daughter into a daily sex partner.
After the man's arrest and incarceration, the woman now lives on the benevolence of philanthropists. Poverty has taken over the best side of this family. This structure, the mud-thatched house, locally called Atakwame, has been their home for close to 15 years. Now the structure cannot hold anymore. Just last week, this side, which served as a bedroom for them, collapsed nearly on the children who were sleeping here. She is telling me that the building collapsed and nearly killed her son, and they were sleeping in the room just close to where the wall collapsed. They are now scared when they have to go and sleep, because when they are sleeping, the existing structure makes cracking noise as if it's going to collapse.
I saw part of the building collapse in a heap. I had to wake up the children and use one hand to pull the youngest of them to safety.
The remaining piece of structure, serving as a place of refuge for them, hangs by the thread.
The remaining part makes noise, and I'm afraid it will cave in anytime soon. We are exposed to snakes and other elements. Please help us to get a place to lay our heads.
On any day, this building shouldn't be the sleeping place of this family, even for another night. But they have nowhere to go. And that is why they are making an emergency appeal to anybody at all who could help support to build a sleeping place for them. Erastus Asaredonko, Joy News, Mankranso, Ashanti region.
Well, that's all for the bulletin. My name is Pakwesi Shandoff. I live in the company of Benjamin Akakpo and Benes Abubedu Lanza. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you for staying with us. It's time now for the news review. We have a stack of papers here and we're joined by a fine gentleman, a good friend of mine, who joins us this morning for tea. Kojo Poku, energy analyst. Kojo, a very good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Ben. How are you?
I'm very well, very well, very well, in fact. It's been a long time. Good to have you joining us for tea this morning.
Yes. How do you like your tea?
And this is a tea of information, a tea filled with information and the cream of everything else that our viewers want. Thank you so much. Let's start, since you're a big, you're a stalwart in the MPP. Let's talk about the National Delegates Conference and what happened over the weekend. So just to walk you through, I know you followed everything, but we had the different parties come along and share their goodwill messages. You saw what Dr. Peter Otokuno came and did with his ball of kenke and say he paid for it with a Ghana card. Maybe casting aspersions, but talking about the dire economic times and, the vice president's allusion to the fact that he would choose the Ghana card over 1,000 interchanges. Then there were other messages, for example, from I think it was the PMC or the NDP, saying that let's stick to it when it comes to free SHS. Let's not do anything. As we go for an IMF program, let's not do anything that will shake the system. There was Ken Oforiatta saying, you want me to resign? Resigning is like a father abandoning his children. We had Asabi tell us that there was vote buying and everything else. And of course, in the main event, we saw a new national chairman, Stephen Ayesu in team, and then the general secretaryship, John Bwedu, lost. Your quick reflection on, the weekend's conference.
Well, good morning and good morning to your viewers. Nice to have you and nice for you to have me. I think the weekend went well. I think the Congress, the only slightest thing that everybody was not happy with is the late start of the Congress itself. But aside that, it went
about 6
well,
hours.
And everybody was very jubilant. Everybody had high expectations.
Right.
Well, and the voting started around probably 6. The Congress itself, around 3 o'clock was when the president arrived. So in that sense, yes, that was the only downside of the Congress. But the jubilation, the enthusiasm, everybody was the place was ecstatic, And the most important thing that people should realize is that the way this thing started in February, we didn't think it would end in such a big jubilation and everybody will be so excited and there will be unity at the end of it. Yes, there's a new chairman, there's a new general secretary. At the end of the day, it's the party that has won, and the unity is what's important. So I think the goodwill messages from other parties was sometimes funny and welcoming, but the most important thing above all is that the party has shown once again that the grassroots determines who leads the party that everybody took out of this Congress. Right.
Well, and for you, the crop of leaders that have been, the crop of leaders that has been selected, are they the ones that you feel can break the 8?
Well, look, you need the instruments, but you need a good handyman to work with the instrument. It goes hand in hand. Without the right instruments, the handyman is handicapped. And without a good handyman, the instruments can't do much. So it's really, we now have the good handyman who needs the instruments to be able to do the work. So now that we have the good handyman in place, it's a matter of which instruments do we give them to be able to break the 8? Breaking the 8 is not just a mantra, which everybody seems to want to use as a slogan. It needs a lot of work, and it's going to be very difficult. But we know that at least, and I've said on your show over and over, that every party has 45%. MPP has his 45% before we said go, and then NDC has their 45% before we said go. Now, what is evident from this Saturday's Congress, on Sunday when everybody was leaving, one of the things that they keep saying is that now the party will work again. So at least for now, the 45% that the MPP has is together, is revibrated. Everybody is enthused with the new chairman, with the new general secretary, and everybody is willing and has a lot of energy to go forward to break the 8. What is next is the tools and the equipment to be able to go out there and get the 5+1, the 5% plus 1 to basically break the 8.
Righto. And on the back of this, of course, there's also what we can expect next is the selection of a flag bearer. Some have spoken about the Alan Chematin camp. This is the final bit before we get into the papers. Some have spoken about the Alan camp and how JFK purportedly leans towards Alan and Stephen Ayesu team as well in the past. Do you feel that that puts Alan Chematin in some better position compared to the vice president? Though I know you have intentions of contending yourself, but I'm asking an open-ended question, looking at the two.
It's not true. Look, people want to sit in their comfort of their chair and make pronouncements that makes people feel like, oh, they are not doing much, but they are in the lead. Look, when I saw those headings, I laughed because none of the people that won are in Alan's camp. There's no such thing as people that won are in Alan's camp. If that's what his supporters or people who purportedly support his candidature is telling him, then it's unfortunate. Because Mr. Stephen Ayesu is not an Allen person. Justin Kodia is not an Allen person. Let's not...
Do you know this for a fact? Do you know this for a fact? Do you know this for a fact? Stephen Ayesu and Tim has been contesting on 4 occasions. This is the 5th time, and some say within the party that yes, he leans towards Alai Tramati.
He's the father. He's the father of all. He is the father of all. Yesterday was his birthday. I want to use this platform to wish him a happy birthday again. I was in his house to wish him happy birthday. A lot of people were in his house to wish him happy birthday. He's a father of all. He is not leaning towards anybody. You know, and Justin Kudia, I've worked with Justin since he was the youth organizer in Ashanti. Okay? And Justin is not an Allen person. Let's stop this thing that we keep branding people.
So he's not an Allen person. Is he a Baumia person then?
He's a nobody's person. That's simple as that. He's his own. Listen, everybody, look. I don't know if you've seen the statistics going around. In the presidential primaries, the grassroots, which is the polling station executives, make up 209. Okay, it's about 180 something thousand. The total electoral college for the presidential primaries is about 209,000. 209,000. The polling station executives, which are the constituency the polling station chairman, polling station organizer, polling station secretary, they make up over 180,000. They are the ones that you need on your camp. Not, I'm sure you saw the video of when Chairman Wuntumi came in with 15 chairmen, said that they are backing Jombodu with their region. And I said that it's not true. They can only have 15 people standing there and they only have 15 votes. And clearly that's what happens. They only have 15 votes. Nobody can support you or be in your camp and you think you won. That politics is over. Now you need to go to the grassroots and talk to the young guys and tell them your vision for Ghana. That's the important thing. And that's what Kojo Poku is doing. So look, let's stop this thing about somebody's in somebody's camp. It's not going to help you.
Let's get into the Daily Graphic newspaper. State loses 27 billion Ghana cedis to tax exemptions. Finance Minister confirms in Parliament. National Service holds first visitation day. Weak Parliament, woes of country. Speaker insists on strengthening oversight responsibility. That's a very interesting story. And on the back page, collaboration key to curbing accidents, Road Safety Authority. Let me also take, so 2 major stories. The one about the state losing taxes and a weak parliament being the bane of our country. Let's start with parliament. Now,
both hand in hand, Ben. Look,
I just wanted to delve into the stories a bit to give some background to it before you react, if you like.
Okay.
Right, so in the first story, most of the challenges facing the country are the result of a weak parliament. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagman, has said. He said much of the waste, mismanagement and corruption that had led to economic downturns in the country could have been averted if Parliament had been strengthened to play its oversight responsibility effectively. Mr. Bagman said this when the editor, graphic Kopi Asma, paid a courtesy call on him at his office in Parliament House in Accra last Friday. The visit, of course, was to deepen the relationship between the Graphic Communications Group and Parliament. But the Speaker said his first year in office had focused on strengthening Parliament, while in the second year, the emphasis had been on solidifying its oversight function. That, he said, was to strengthen Parliament to enable it to hold the executive arm of government and state institutions accountable to the people for, the power to be used prudently. The other story, page 13, I just want to put them together, Kojo, so we look at them. State loses 27 billion Ghana cedis to tax exemptions, Finance Minister confirms in Parliament. So what are the details? The Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, has confirmed that the country lost about 27 billion to tax exemptions granted some businesses between 2008 and 2020. I'm talking cedis. The amount translates to about 2.2 billion Ghana cedis surrendered in tax waivers each year for the 12-year period. Addressing Parliament last Friday, the Finance Minister also said since 2008, it was only in 2020 that the lost revenue declined to about 1.8 billion Ghana cedis. Now, on the back of that, the minister gave the confirmation after a Deputy Minister of Finance, Abnose Asari, had moved a motion for the second reading of the Tax Exemptions Bill 2020. So this is a matter that has been in and out of the, the discussion basket, and a lot of people have said that we give too many exemptions. I know the Bretton Woods institutions, even the World Bank, at a point, has had to talk about the number of exemptions we give. Over to you, Kojo. What is your take on this, as the Speaker has revealed the gargantuan sums we're losing and the weakness of our Parliament, per the Speaker?
Well, Ben, both goes hand in hand. A weak Parliament oversees a weak process. Now, my question is, who caused the weak Parliament? Is the weak Parliament as a result of them not having the right tools and the right environment or the right infrastructure to do their work? Look, some time back, everybody was moaning that Parliament was weak because they didn't have offices, they didn't have the environment where they work. Some of them were saying they work out of their car. And then we completed Job 600. What happened? Now, every parliamentarian has a beautiful office. I've been there. The offices has computers, have space for assistants. Go in there one day with your cameras and see if there is anybody in that building when they are not in the house. Normally there's a time when they come in the morning, they go into their offices and the bell is rung for all of them to go into the chamber. Or when they go on break, they are supposed to go into their offices and basically do. They don't use their offices. Most parliamentarians don't use their office. And even research assistants, I think as part of their salaries, they are paid, or there is an allowance from Parliament budgetary for research assistants. Some of us who are civil society has also offered our services to parliamentarians that, look, you can engage us for free. I know most civil society organizations have told parliamentarians that you can engage our services for free. When it comes to when bills are laid in Parliament, you want to do research, you want further information, but nobody uses these things because at most 98% of the time, they are being whipped to approve something in less than 48 hours. And how are you going to do any proper in-depth research? I'll give you a typical example. When you take the document, the committee report that goes to the floor of the House, if you take the memo that comes from the executive, so the executive does a memo, and that memo is laid on the floor of the House, and it is now given to the committee to go and do their sitting. The committee sits, and then the committee is supposed to present their report to the floor of the House for approval. Ben, I bet you, go and take 3 of these sets of committee report and memos. They are cut and paste. Every time you see a committee report, is a cutting of the memo that is cut and paste as a report, which is not supposed to be. What the committee report is supposed to be the deliberation of the committee. What went on, what was said, what were the disagreements, what was what. The detailed report of the committee sitting is what's supposed to go to the floor of the House. All the committee reports I have seen in the energy sector, most of them are a cut and paste of the memo that was presented to them into the committee report. It tells you that the committee did not deliberate anything. Okay? So for me, when
which also means that our members of Parliament are doing us a great disservice, because that is exactly, in fact, that is the core function, one of the core functions of why they are in Parliament, looking through all of these documentations. And like you point, if there's this sloppiness with memos, then you can imagine what could be happening in other aspects of their work.
No, Ben, I have been to one of these hearings, and the first time I attended one of these was the PDS. We took so much interest in PDS that we petitioned, myself, Kwam Jantwa, and ASEP, Ben Boachi, petitioned the chairman of the Energy Committee. We went to the Job 600 to meet with the gentleman at that time. Then I actually took time the day of the hearing, attended the hearing. There were 3 agreements that were to be passed. They took less than 1 hour, 30 minutes to go through 3 agreements. And at that time, Dr. Sibeyeboa said that, we've done exhaustive, we spent a lot of time. And I'm saying that thinking, really? You just breeze through these agreements without even acknowledging that civil society have petitioned the committees, and nobody mentioned the civil society petitions at the committee. Then you now go through, and again with PDS, the committee report was a cut and paste of the memo from the executive to the floor. And we also saw what happened with PDS, because we have said that without an exhaustive deliberation on the agreement, PDS will not last 6 months. And PDS exactly did not last 6 months. So it is their undoing. They should take a lot more time to engage research assistants. Like I said, they could get some for free from civil society, or use the allowances in parliamentary budgets to basically engage people to do in-depth work for them. Now, in terms of the 25 billion tax exemptions, now who caused them? They are the ones approving these tax exemptions. And the parliament...
But you're a businessman. You're a businessman. You know how this feeds into the entirety of the conversation. When we talk about the free zones, authority and all of that, you know how this feeds into the conversation. But are we getting value from all of these? Go on the Dawenya Pram stretch. You see a lot of entities benefiting from these in different parts of the country. But are we getting the boons, the benefits eventually from these entities? I guess that's what we ought to be looking at, not necessarily the bit about giving tax waivers. We know about instances where in the past we've been told, oh, someone close to some president or some person or someone walking the corridors of power has his or her company being given tax waivers, and questioned them. But beyond that, for any genuine ones out there, I mean, what can we do better to get greater benefits as a country?
Okay, so I think the problem is not necessarily companies in the free zone getting tax waivers. I don't think that is what this 25 billion exemption is. Mostly when you have bilateral agreements for construction of certain projects. Most projects, when the companies are coming in, they give them tax waivers for the importations. So I'll give you an example. The Pualugu Dam, the Chinese are building. You realize that most of the imports that the Chinese are bringing in will all have tax waivers. If a construction company or companies have been given contract to build certain things in Ghana, they are giving tax exemptions. Some companies also apply because of, there are even one or two local companies that, because of the nature of their work, are giving tax exemptions. The most important thing is that, look, the thinking that I see is that if you are to tax the product being used for your own work, then it's more like biting your tongue for meat, because you are actually increasing the bill to yourself. That is why, in some instances, the government will give a tax waiver so that the expense of the contract is not burdened by taxes, which is for the government itself, because then you really be chasing your own tail. In that instance, I understand. But there are clear instances of abuse where in some cases, we are not supposed to keep tax waivers. And that is where Parliament is supposed to investigate, research, and these things.
Okay. Just to add to what you've said, part of what was said per the Daily Graphic, it will also provide a regulatory regime for monitoring tax exemptions to ensure that exemptions granted are used for the intended purpose, as well as curtail the abuse of the existing exemptions regime. So you see why I was talking about some of what I did. And obviously, we need a tweaking of the regime. But I want us to end in the Daily Graphic with this. Harvest souls, not wealth. Harvest souls, not wealth. And that is the moderator of the Global Evangelical Church, the Right Reverend Samuel Prosper Jomeku, saying, harvest souls, not wealth. He may be speaking to the clergy, but let's put this in a national context. I've heard a lot of people say, look, young people, think about the future of the country. Think about your progeny, posterity, and maybe being morally upright. But some of the youth will turn out and tell you, don't you see our leaders? Can't you see what they are doing? And if we want to go into politics, look, we all meet them. I'm sure you have. They'll tell you bluntly that, look, I want to go into politics because, me too, the national cake, I want chop some. All of these are there. And we see all the weird happenings in our country, especially on the back of the economic downturn. How does this resonate with you? Harvest souls, or be, in essence, let's look out for morality rather than seeking money.
Exactly. So that's exactly the word I was going to use, the moral issue, the moral conversation. That deep-seated conviction of moral issue. When you have good morality or you have good morals, then you do not go into the greed and all the things that are the underlying factors of corruption. So when the good gentleman says that harvest souls, what he's trying to say is that, look, let's be our brother's keeper, which is the number one golden rule that we've all heard. Now, the wealth, if you can have all the money in the world, most people, yes, I believe in money because I think that that's why we all get up in the morning to go to work. But what is it worth that if you now gain all the wealth and then basically lose your soul? So everybody comes in naked and goes out naked. So what the gentleman is trying to say is that let's not dwell on the wealth of this earth, okay? Let's look at the soul of a human being. And the soul of the human being is the inner being of that person. And I've said on your show several times that what really comes out when people become politicians or get power is their inner being, which is their soul. So without good morals from beginning, the person will end up showing their true self. And because they don't have good morals, that's what we see all this greed and the corruption, where in the past, somebody just having 1 car, 2 car, 3 car in their drive was enough. Now people want to be able to demonstrate that they can buy 10 cars.
And it's because we are learning from the best. It's because we are learning from our leaders. We're learning from our leaders, aren't we? Our leaders are a reflection of us, and we are a reflection of our leaders.
Exactly. We keep forgetting that we keep thinking that our leaders came from space to be leaders. No, our leaders were members of society who are a reflection of us, as you just said. So it is the whole entirety. It's not just leaders. Leaders are part of us. They are just in the front to lead us. But if we change the way we are, it will also reflect on them. If you are buying 30 cars and everybody is disgusted, you stop buying 30 cars.
Right.
But we seem to appreciate these things. We are beginning to become a country of mediocrity. Let me give you a quick example of what happened to me yesterday. It's become that in the media space, especially the online bloggers now, they try to put derogatory headlines to videos. That's why people will watch. If you put a video as a blogger on YouTube or online, and you put very good descriptive analysis of the intellectual discussion, nobody watches it. Now, yesterday, I saw that there was one of these online TVs that came to my office and do an interview. A very beautiful interview that did not mention Kennedy Japan. Okay? Now, when these bloggers put the video on their site, guess the heading that they put as the video? Kojo Poku will beat Kennedy Japan like a child. Kennedy Japan was not even mentioned in the interview. So the only reason they will put Kojo Poku will beat Kennedy Japan like a child is because that is what they think everybody wants to read.
Right, so sensationalism, right.
So it's really disturbing the trajectory that we are on as a nation. So look, I agree with the gentleman 100%. We are losing our soul as human beings, and we are just going on that trajectory of just abnormality and stupidity, unfortunately.
Let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Veep launches e-pharmacy platform that has been in the works for a while for public to access pharmaceutical services using mobile phones and computers. Another one in the digitization drive. There's also woman's death in ambulance probe. You've been following that story. Spinal anesthesia procedure complication caused death. That's according to Professor Zakaria of the Ghana Ambulance Service. But there's also on page 7, 35 perished, 207 injured, and 4,065 fire outbreaks in last 6 months. And here's why it's even more important to look at this story. A total of 35 persons perished and 207 others suffered injury in 4,065 fire outbreaks across the country within 6 months of this year, as against 3,307 outbreaks recorded the previous year within the same period. This represents an increase of 22.9%, over 1/5. The cost of damage was pegged at 30,197,948 cedis and 20 pesos. Quick reflections. Kojo.
Well, it's very dire. I'm a man of many hats, and I've been the co-owner and on a board of an insurance company for some time, since probably 2009. One of the things that came up recently is that, the NIC came up and said that fire policy, it should be extended to all commercial buildings and stuff like that. So insurance companies are busy trying to insure buildings. The downside of that is that with all these fires and bad electrical works in most of these buildings, there is a lot of fire going around. And I can assure you that most of the fire within our buildings is mostly to do with electrical problems. The low fluctuation and the fluctuation, high current and low current, in some instances, sparks, and with the bad cables being imported and used, some of the things that happen is that it results in fire. Now, with the e-pharmacy, look, we are doing a lot of these online stuff. It's a good thing. Digitization is a good thing. But for me, I just think that the builders, the developers of these platforms are not building robust systems. I'll give you a typical example, the Registrar General Department. Every week, 3 times out of the week, their system is down because the software they have doesn't work well. The developers do not build robust systems. Today, we are talking about the Ghana card, which has getting a lot of slack recently because of doctors' comments. The Ghana card is not even integrated with a lot of things. And the simple thing they are supposed to do is to basically have an API that basically helps with integration. But most platforms that we have in Ghana are built with a lot of bugs. And it doesn't work. It's down most times. So it's good to have e-pharmacy, but how robust will be the e-pharmacy platform? Okay, that is the problem that I have. And also, with everything now going on online, what is our firewall? What is the security? What is the encryption of some of these data that we keep collecting from people and putting online? Those are the questions that we are supposed to be asking. Because it's good to have everybody's data and everybody's information online. With the strength of the encryption that we are deploying in this country, I don't know the type of encryption, but it will take a hacker maybe 10 seconds to break into our system if they are even able to break into.
So we have very porous systems that we really ought to be looking at. And speaking of hackers, that also brings me to that other all-important situation. I'll be wrapping with the Ghanaian Times shortly, but this brought to mind the situation with terrorists, because now there's also terrorism on the hacking level that can be done to cripple your economy, economic terrorism. We also know currently, and Kojo, we have just about maybe some 6-7 minutes to play with, so quite a number of issues. Let's digest them as quickly as we can. 200 Ghanaian fighters, as we know it, it's a major issue we're looking at this morning, are already among various jihadist outfits in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Guess what? Terrorist groups have infiltrated Ghana, according to the latest reports, and a Ghanaian fighter from Karaga was utilized in the recent onslaught against French military personnel in Mali. And apparently there's an active recruitment ongoing in our mining areas. You know, these terrorists usually target countries based on wealth, and they also target, like in Nigeria, oil-rich areas, mining areas, and all of that. As you spoke about the other matter, let's link it to this one. What is your reflection on that?
Well, it's disturbing. And it's very disturbing to the point that in some instances, we also have ethnicity playing a role. I happened to, over the weekend, sit with a friend of mine from Boko, Upper East area. And no, we don't talk much about the Boko situation. We tend to want to sweep it to the back end. But apparently, the situation in Boko has not gone down. It's a really situation that the national security and the president needs to address, because it is a century-long problem between the Kusasis and the Mamprosis. And I think that because they are no longer using guns, everybody thinks that the gun violence is going down, but the killing has not stopped. Okay, so in our own backyard, we have a dire situation in Boko that everybody seems that we are not paying attention to because it's not in the news. Everybody thinks that it's gone away. It's not. And because of these youth, like you said, mining areas, go to Takwa Pristia area and see the restlessness of the youth there. Nothing is going on for the youth. Okay, so it will be easier for people to come and entice them with money and all the above to join some of these things. And when they train them, these guys can easily come back and integrate in our society, which is the seriousness of it. We've always said that we can easily look out for the foreigner. But in most cases, if they want to now strike, they only use foreigners. They will look at homegrown terrorists and use them to basically do what they need to do. Right. So we need to be on guard. We need to basically report any suspicious activity of our friend, neighbor, or somebody that recently go away and come back and start talking funny.
If you see something, say something. That's the catchphrase. Warning of heat apocalypse in parts of France. And it's getting interesting because there's a heat apocalypse facing Western France, experts have warned as extreme temperatures continue to hit much of Europe. Temperatures could reach record levels in 15 regions. And we all know it's not just France that is affected. Greece is affected. We also have Spain being affected as well. In France, about 14,000 hectares of land have been compromised because of wildfires and all of that. But quick reaction to a number of stories. So the Ghanaian Times, page 17, Swami residents protest against bad roads. And the timely arrival of the police prevented what could have been a nasty situation after a mob at the Swami Mezzine attempted to attack the member of parliament for the area on Monday. While they were hooting at him, throwing sachets of pure water at him. And it all had to do with the construction of a stretch of road. And there are more major constructions coming up, which hadn't been asphalted. The contractors supposedly had gone to the Ivory Coast. I found that interesting, to get bitumen, per the explanation of Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu and all of that. And the people were fed up because guess what, Kojo? These are people selling spare parts. You know what dust does to spare parts and their health as well. Tie that into what the Daily Guide newspaper says. So I stabbed JB, that is JB Dankwa, Sexy Don Don says so. That is in the Daily Guide newspaper, that long-standing matter. Two of them, we'll wrap with another 2 points and we're done. But let's do these two for now.
Well, look, the road situation in the Swami area going all the way to Medema in the Kwabiri East area is crazy. My brother, they don't have, apart from the main road that's asphalted, all the link road, none is asphalted.
Right.
Look, in Mamfontein, in the Kwabiri area today, since the existence of Mamfontein, none of the Mamfontein town roads are done. Before the election in 2020, a contractor was brought to site. He was spent 3-4 weeks on the site and left. Started building gutters, left the half-done gutters, and people were now tripping in these gutters and injuring themselves. Okay, this is a road contract that has been awarded. It's very strange that you mentioned that somebody will go to Kumasi and tell people of Kumasi that somebody has to go to Ivory Coast to get bitumen. Were we not in this country when Guel's so-called factory in Tema launched that does bitumen? I mean, Ben, I'm sure you heard the story that Guel has recently commissioned a bitumen plant in Tema. What happened to that plant? Now that somebody has to go to Ivory Coast to get bitumen. You see, I keep saying that, look, let's stop running the country with propaganda. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help me. Ghanaians will start losing faith. And they've started losing faith in this political system. And that's why some of us want to come back and restore that faith in politics. All right. Because it's laughable.
Let's wrap on this point, Kojo, in just some 30 seconds. The final newspaper, Access Bank appoints Amabewa as first female board chair, at least. That's another win for women, and I'm happy about that. Mahama underscores need for every Ghanaian to have Ghana card, while they've also been talking about the fact that if we're going to use that to compile another register, we should be sure not to disenfranchise anyone. The Daily Statesman finally says, more OMCs cut fuel prices. I want your reflection in some 20 seconds, Kojo, and we'll go.
Well, congratulations to my sister Amabewa, and it's a good win for women, as she said. Women empowerment is a thing that we are all fighting to make sure that we get our sisters in a lot of places. Fuel prices most definitely is on a downward, is on a descent, which is a good thing. And I think we should talk more about it in the coming. If the city is strengthened, I even keep saying that, look, if we're able to get some inflows of forex and the city goes down to about 740. We will be able to see a major reduction in the price of fuel to come down further because the international prices have receded. Right. The Ghana card is a good thing. Everybody should get theirs, and let's use the biofutures of that for the election 2024.
Kojo Poku, thank you for joining the conversation.
Have a nice day.
All right. Kojo Poku is an energy analyst and a man who shares his thoughts freely. He joined us for the news review. But up next, we have sports. Do stay. 200 to 300 Ghanaians, fighters, have already been integrated into some jihadist outfits across the sub-region. We're talking Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. These terrorist groupings have already infiltrated Ghana. And one Ghanaian from Karaga was recently involved in the attack on French forces in Mali in June last year. There also happens to be, per that latest report we have, an active recruitment in mining areas across the northern belt of the country. And per the latest report that we have from the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation, we have a lot on our hands to deal with as far as terrorism is concerned. Shortly, we'll be giving you a scope of the terrorist activity in recent times across the sub-region. But first, let me welcome you aboard as we kickstart our big stories. We start by talking about terrorism, and joining us for that conversation, Mumuni Mukhtar. He's Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. We also have Adib Sani, Executive Director, Center for Human Security and Peace Building. He joins the conversation as well. Mr. Sani, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, and good morning to my brother Mukhtar.
All right. So as and when that image is ready, we'll splash it on the screen just to give you an idea of the terrorist activity across the sub-region, very close to us in recent times, and how it has come virtually knocking on our doors in recent times. We have been fortunate not to have had a terrorist attack in this country, but moving forward with how close it is coming to us, about 9 kilometers, what should we be doing? We'll be looking at that as and when it is available. But for you, Adib Sani, looking at this latest report from the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation, what picture does it paint for you? Because definitely, if you look at the scope, you look at the trajectory, the Kitabis and the recruitment we're talking about, 200 to 300 Ghanaians, and how some of them are supposedly coming back. They train them, they come back into the country to basically proselytize in a religious sense, to come and recruit. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, I remember I had access to this report at the draft stage. In fact, before it came out. And I have quite a bit of a relationship with those behind it, particularly the lead for pro-mediation. So I knew about it. I had studied it extensively before it came out. And I'm not surprised because the threat has been there for some time now. Indeed, considering our proximity to the Cascade, the northern Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and Togo, it is worrisome because the report states categorically that Ghana has become sort of a withdrawal point for these terrorists who are able to effectively stage attacks in these countries, then conveniently cross the border into Ghana, reorganize, and perhaps go back to stage another round of attacks. And so it is not surprising when we see them making, movements, and you see national security writing to various security agencies on the ground to the effect that they've seen some movements of persons. These are those persons who are perhaps reorganizing. But a lot of questions has also been asked. I mean, despite all of these threats we face, how come we haven't been attacked? And, it's not...
For you, what is the reason? Is it luck? Is it anything our officers are doing, military, police, and all of that, customs, immigration? Is it because we appear to be, having some sort of campaign that if you see something, say something, and all of that? I mean, what is it that is working for us? Or is it just that we've not, excited them or been that much of an incentive for them to, come here?
Well, that has been part and parcel of a number of efforts aimed at countering terrorism in West Africa, particularly. We have, the Accra initiative that is headquartered here, made up of Ghana, East Neighbors, Benin, Mali, and of course Niger. So definitely we have touched their tail, and they might want to come after us. Besides, a lot of these groups, which are mostly Al-Qaeda and ISIS affiliated, their leaders have, told them to go after Western targets, and they are so-called collaborators. So once you have anything to do with the West, you are a collaborator. So it is safe to say that Ghana is a collaborator. We have some deficits, including porous borders. In 2019...
So when you say, just hold on for me. I know you use these terms a lot, but I want us to break them down for the ordinary person watching us. When you say Ghana is a collaborator, so to speak, what does it really mean? Like in a simple sense?
Good. A collaborator in the sense of the terrorist perspective. If you have anything to do with the West, whether trade, commerce, security cooperation, what it means is you are helping the West fight them. And let's not forget that we have a defense cooperation agreement with the Americans, and you know what that means.
Right. That is true.
The use of part of our airport. And of course, Ghana is a springboard to fighting the terrorists. So we are also a potential. You see, the thing is, terrorists don't just wake up and decide to go after countries. They should have a motive, they should have the means, they should have the opportunity. Okay, so the motive might be Ghana taking part in sub-regional efforts, Ghana collaborated, so to speak, with Western countries to fight them. Okay, they have the means because they have the money, they have the weapons, and the opportunity is maybe inadvertently the strength we are giving them. Our border security is a major issue. According to one up in 2019, even though there are 14 approved border crossings between Ghana and Burkina Faso, a count of the illegal ones turned out to be well over 189. And these terrorists take advantage of these smuggling routes to traffic weapons. They are able to traffic even humans. And that is really a major cause for worry. However, I think based on my analysis and study of the issue, and of course, experiences, I think Ghana is being used for something else. Okay, and the fear is Ghana might outlive its youthfulness, then we become a potential target. Let's not forget that earlier this year there was a UN report submitted specifically to the UN Security Council that pointed to a terrorist warehouse in Ghana, Togo, and in Benin. So Ghana has become more like a transit point. Ghana has become where they keep their warehouses, where they regroup, where they recruit. Okay, so we are serving a different purpose. And even though I cannot also run away from the fact that our security services are doing a lot, but I don't think it's enough.
It's interesting. You seem to contradict yourself. You say, though you cannot overlook the fact that our security forces are doing enough, yet you say they are not doing enough. So I'm a bit confused here. But especially when you talk about these warehouses that are even being set up by, jihadist groups and recruitment drives and all of that, it obviously means there are a lot of pieces in this jigsaw puzzle that are missing in terms of dealing with the situation, right?
Okay, so what I meant to see, perhaps it was a matter of semantics. What I meant to say is our security services are doing a lot, but it's not enough. Okay, example, in Togo, they are doing it from a two-pronged approach. Okay, one, they have militarization of the area in which a lot of deployment has been done, and also there is an interministerial body to counter the threat of terrorism that is really working closely with the communities there. But in Ghana, I think most of it has to do with the militarization aspects. We are ignoring some fundamental issues on the ground, including lack of amenities to the population, youth unemployment, poverty, and all that, which I must say is the major issue so far as the recruitment drive is concerned. We need to improve intelligence, I must say. Still, these terrorists are able to operate under the radar without being noticed by the security services. There's a need for collaboration, and this is extremely key. If not, the trouble would be we'll be doing our bit, we'll be doing the best we can, but pay for somebody else's inefficiency. And I'll give you a specific example. In recent times, we have seen the number of prison breaks in Nigeria. We are in Ghana, but it's going to affect us So what invariably that means is we are paying for somebody else's inefficiency. We are paying for Nigeria's inefficiency so far as their prison management is concerned, because a lot of these inmates find their way into Ghana. So with collaboration, we put everybody on the same page. But the splintered nature of the collaboration, I must say, is also not helping. We have Accra Initiative, G5 Sahel, MINUSMA, Joint Task Force, Operation Bakan, Operation this, Operation that. But if we are able to come together under a single umbrella, okay, and have every mate, I'm sure we'll be doing a lot to stem the tide. If not, I mean, we might have spillover effects, which I must say is occurring, particularly between Burkina Faso and Mali, and Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Togo, and it's also likely to affect those of us in Ghana.
All right, I'll be calling for that image that I was speaking of earlier, Adi, for us to take a look at, because obviously I don't know whether we are awake enough to the threat. Because again, I reiterate, we've never been attacked, and you know, sometimes that also has its downsides, because you don't have the experience of knowing how this goes. But you look at what we have on your screens, and you'd realize that all the way from Benin leading into Togo and spilling over into Ghana, at least not yet, but look at that figure, very close to the edge. I'll be getting there. But you would notice that on the 9th of November, 2021, there was an attack, and that was suspected JNIM or Ansarul Islam militants attacking an army position in Salwaga, and casualties were unknown. And Salwaga, by the way, is within Togo. Then you have the 11th May 2022 incident, an attack on an army position in Penkankadi. At least 8 soldiers were killed. But it gets closer to us. 14th and 15th of July 2022, unidentified assailants reportedly kill dozens of villagers in Blamonga, Bembole, and other villages in Togo. Let's go up north a bit, because right in neighboring Burkina Faso on the 15th of June 2022, and look at the trajectory. An unidentified armed group attacks military forces in the village of Gulungusi. Casualties are unknown. And then the closest that we've come to, the 9th and the 10th of July 2022, an aircraft accidentally targets and kills 7 teenagers in Magba. And all of this, you know, happening within the sub-region from November 2021 through to July 2022. That paints quite a staggering picture. Basically, if you look at the last image, the terrorists are knocking on our very doors. Your reaction to that, Adib Sani, because I keep saying that, look, we know they are here. They've just not engaged in any activity that we would call a terrorist attack. But again, with all of this knowledge, have we woken up to the presence of the security threats you spoke of? Nigeria has had a lot of jailbreaks. I think recently about 64 jihadists made away. We have the situation in Mali with their military regime. Burkina Faso with its own problems in terms of dealing with insurgents. And once they are unable to deal with them, the spillover goes where? To Ghana.
Absolutely, in Ghana. And the unfortunate truth is, but before I come to that, let me correct myself. I mentioned there were 14 migration points between Ghana and Burkina Faso. There are actually 44 as of 2019, according to WANEC, but there were over 189 illegal crossings. So with specificity to the points you're raising, I think it is worrying because at the point we felt that this was a Western affair and terrorists should have nothing to do with us. But by the day, it's becoming closer and closer to us. And according to Brian Jenkins, if you study terrorism and the name Brian Jenkins is not mentioned, then I'm not sure you studied terrorism. He said that now the terrorists want more people dead and more people scared. Their level of lethality has grown over the period, the savage nature of their attacks and their expansion by by the way, is also growing. But there seems to be an inconsistency here. Countries have committed a lot of resources, military resources, to fighting terrorism with cooperation from their Western allies. I mean, lately we see a lot of American instructors, British instructors, and even French coming in to help their counterparts in West Africa, so we are able to effectively fight the terrorists. However, most interestingly, we are seeing a growth. We are seeing that they are coming closer and closer to the coastal area. So it tells us one thing, that there is no military solution to the fight against terrorism. And I repeat, there is no military solution to the fight against terrorism. In as much as we need a bit of the whip, I think the major focus should be on addressing these structural issues on the ground. For example, in Burkina Faso, there are a lot of ungoverned spaces in which government is not able to provide services. These terrorist groups fill the vacuum, impose taxes, are able to provide services that the central administration is not able to provide, such as water, such as jobs, and even sanitation, activities. Okay, so for Ghana, we are at the crossroads, and for a very long time, we were sort of in a state of denial until my good brother Wasi Mutar came out with a report that got everybody talking. And all of a sudden, National Security Ministry then decided that, yes, indeed, the threat is there. They are coming. Perhaps we've hidden it from you all this while. And so if you see something, say something. Okay, and I have problems with that, because I've always said that government
do you think we waited too long, especially on the back of what you're saying? Basically, we knew, but maybe we were afraid to put it out there that this is happening in the sub-region and that we are at risk.
Absolutely. It came too late. A bit too late.
It came too late. All right. Hold for me, Adib. Let me bring in Mumuni Mukhtar, Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. Mukhtar, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Hello, good morning to you, and good morning to our listeners.
Right. It is clear from this latest report, and it's something we've known, we have porous borders. Now we're being told that 200 to 300 of our own have been integrated into these jihadist cells. Some of them have gone out, and now they have been tasked to come back to different villages across the country to proselytize, religious proselytizing, of course, jihadist or a terrorist proselytizing as well, to spread the word and recruit people. We also see that there's an active engagement up north in gold-producing areas. Why is this important? Because across, when you look at Burkina Faso and others, the Savannah region especially shares borders with some of these areas, and it's becoming increasingly worrisome. What is the picture this paints for you?
Well, this is a report that should worry all of us. But it's a report that we need to look at further. 200 and above. These are very, very serious figures we are talking about. And we need to interrogate the report further to really establish what this really is and what it means for us. You're talking about borders, porous borders, talking about mining sites and areas of vulnerabilities. We've always known this. Our authorities and people who work in this sector have always known that these are very vulnerable spots or target areas. But in terms of this report and its content, who are these individuals we're talking about? Where are they coming from? How were they recruited? And how were they able to get back into the system successfully? We need to interrogate that further. Other than that, it would just be a part of a mix of things we're looking at in terms of the panic and alarm that it means for all of us. What we should be looking at is, what is the reality of the threat to our country, and what are the measures we have taken or we are taking in dealing with the threat? And I've heard my brother make a lot of very valuable points in terms of our response to dealing with violent extremism or the threat of terrorism to our country. We have been very, very slow to act in terms of preparedness, in terms of measures from the point or the perspective of state. we have only recently seen states fully acknowledging that this is a reality, this is a threat that is very close to us, and that we needed to be doing something more than just talking about it. But even that, we are yet to see the full force of the state in terms of the measures, in terms of mobilizing the support of the local population and civil society to be able to come out with measures against that, in terms of what we call building resilience against the threat of terrorism or violent extremism on our soil. And that we haven't seen enough. We risk being ambushed by crime. This is a threat that has been moving towards us in a very long time. It's been that since 2015, 2016, when we had the attacks in Cote d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso. And yet, we haven't seen any direct and practical state measures, especially dealing with the local population. Luckily, we have all come to acknowledge that it's a reality. It is something we cannot hide or pretend that is a remote threat to us. And so we need the states to go beyond see something, say something, and really practicalize measures. As we speak now, there is a national framework for countering and preventing violent extremism and terrorism. There has to be national action plans to put that framework into action. We haven't seen any any national action plans. That has to be done to ensure that all of us get involved in helping build resilience against terrorism.
Pardon my interjection. As you speak about national action plans, something comes to mind. You're talking about ambushing, the fact that we are practically getting encircled or surrounded by these terrorists. Then the national action plans. You recall the last time when we started hearing from the National Security Minister, Albert Kandapa, sounding, the warning that we could face a terrorist threat. We spoke about these self-same issues, that look, we need a national action plan. Even churches and mosques, how they are supposed to go about what they go about. It shouldn't be left to each church or mosque or religious group or, whatever, to handle their own business or decide we're going to do it this way. Up until now, we don't have that national plan. What does that really mean? I mean, are we taking this seriously enough?
I think in theory, everyone knows, those who work in this sector, that we are facing a very, very difficult threat, and a threat that we cannot or must not joke with. What we are missing is action around it. There's a lot of delay in terms of the things we need to be doing, and terrorists don't wait. And so we need to be fast, quick, and adequate in our measures, and that we are not seeing happen from the state level. The national action plans we're talking about, let's look at it on paper. It's great. It has adequate space for the participation of civil society and local community actors. And yet, we have taken too long to outdraw any national action plans that allows us to practicalize it. And the risk is that we risk being overwhelmed with security, because any single incident of terrorism happening on our soil has a tendency to undo everything and immobilize all of us in terms of living a normal life. And that is a huge security threat we are looking at. And on the basis of that, we should have been acting with a sense of agency or emergency from the state of, the state's perspective. Ensure that we rope in all actors, including you, the media, who would help project the measures we put in place. See something, say something came in, and just probably 4 weeks, 6 weeks after that, we seem to have, forgotten that there was a threat we're seeking to deal with. And that everything seemed to have gone back to normal conversation. And
that is precisely because we don't have that national action plan, because there's no plan. Because when there was COVID and there were clear instructions on what was expected at mass gatherings and all of that, by and large, people complied. With this one, we don't have a plan. So everybody, it's free for all. Everyone is doing what they please.
Sure. And I think that we need to find ways to, get the state to act in line with this threat. Because the more we talk about it this way without action, the more or the higher the chances that we get fatigue. We're talking about terrorism and the threat of terrorism to this space. And I think that the media can do a great job by highlighting these issues, not intended to cause alarm or panic, but creating or highlighting the issues intended to get the state to act and get all actors to be involved. That way, we can ensure that we build resilience against the threat.
So just how close, how grave is the threat? Let me just read two short paragraphs from pages 9 and 10 of that latest report from the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation. And I would have both of you react to this. It talks about the grey economy, the engine of progress for jihadist groups. And it says, however, as in Ghana and neighboring countries, there is no clear dividing line between the jihadist and criminal worlds in Togo, but rather a continuous interweaving of spheres of activity and zones of influence where certain nodes, such as commercial crossroads or natural parks, are always likely to encourage the establishment of clandestine cells. This is particularly true for the town of Sinkase and other localities bordering Ghana up to Boku. I'm reading from the last paragraph of page 9 and the start of page 10, which could attract the covetousness of armed groups, particularly the JNIM-GSIM, which is firmly established in eastern Burkina Faso, separated from the town of the same name in Burkina Faso by a single bridge. Sinkase is a major hub for illegal trafficking in the sub-region, stretching from northern Ghana to Benin. Its position as a border crossroad makes it a transit point for small arms and drugs to and from Burkina Faso. So I want us to weave in the aspect of arms proliferation and the fact that these cells, it's such a free flow, because like we talk about the grey economy, just as applies in Togo, it applies pretty much in Ghana as well. Fluidity between, the jihadist and criminal worlds, and with arms in the mix, it's just a toxic cocktail, isn't it? I would have you react to it first, Mumuni, before I go to Adib.
Well, the issues you highlighted in there, it's not new to our state security actors and people who work in this area. If you look at the eastern north corridor of our country, it is a largely ungoverned space along many of the borders. We've known for a very long time the criminal networks around smuggling and small arms proliferations. And it is not a surprise that you would see the feature of that in many of the conflicts, especially the Boko conflict and the pervasive use of small arms and even increasingly complicated weapons in that conflict. This is not new to national security, but I have not been able to establish the reality of the fact that the quality or the character of the criminal networks and jihadis or terrorist groups in Togo and Burkina Faso are the same as those we have in the eastern north corridor of Ghana. I haven't seen that similarity. The reality of what I see is the, existence of criminal networks that involves elements from outside of the border and those of Burkina Faso, Benin, and Togo, and even beyond. The quality of what they do is significantly different in terms of the production of violence or the intentions for who. What we need to do.
Hello, Mukhtar?
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead. I lost you for a moment.
What we need to do is to rein in the role of actors that are supposed to sanitize that part and police that part to ensure that we prevent that from escalating or serving as a conveyor belt to terrorist violence in that space. We've seen how in the last few years, the Small Arms and Light Weapons Commission role has been called into action. We need to retool it to ensure that it is present and effective across all parts of the country. At the moment, we have to see there has been attempt at reforming the Small Arms and Light Weapons Commission to ensure that it either becomes an authority or close with some level of powers adequate enough to act not just with information or research, but act in helping prevent these things from escalating to levels of insecurity for us.
Right. Let me say a very good morning. Because I said I would go to Adib on this matter. Adib, maybe you could do about a minute for me, and then I'll go to Johnson Asante-Twum, Programs Manager with the Small Arms Commission. Mr. Asante-Twum, a very good morning to you, sir. Hello, Mr. Asante-Twum.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for joining the conversation. Just hold for me for about a minute and a half. Let me bring in Adib on a crucial point that has been made. So, for you, Adib Sani, on the self-same subject, what is your take?
Well, we start to note that we don't have an arms regulator in Ghana. Can you believe this? 21st century Ghana.
The police service is playing the role, though it is not mandated to do so. It's in a way trying to play the role.
And it can't play that role. For example, under the 1972 Arms and Ammunition Act, the IGP is supposed to have a central register of all weapons. Fine. Perhaps the 1.25 million Ghanaians who own weapons have our details with the IGP. But let's not forget that in 2020, out of all the 1.25, only about 40,000 renewed their licenses. So what happened to the rest?
Right.
How come they follow that? But if we had a regulator, they would follow up, because you have all the details, you have their names, you have their pictures, their addresses, next of kins, okay, to follow up. Unfortunately, that is not exactly what we see. And you see, Sankansi, if you are from the north, and Mutar is from the north, it's a very, very common town to every northerner. Because I remember my first generator I bought it from Sankansi. A lot of the motorbikes you see around being driven in the north are from Sankansi. It is recently some businessmen decided to bring it from China. But you see, it's a melting pot of activities. A lot of businesses happen there. And these terrorists are taking advantage. And there are a lot of other smuggling routes. So you see, there's a thin line between the criminal elements and the terrorists, as has been established in the report. So they take advantage of the porous nature of these borders, the fact that we have immigration officials who are there and don't even have weapons. When I said this, they came out to say, no, it's not true. Just yesterday, we started supplying them the weapons.
So we even have the challenge of immigration officers without weapons. So if anything were to happen, they would be sitting ducks. They would be able to do nothing.
Absolutely. And it's yesterday they started supplying them the weapons. And at a border area, of all the weapons they supplied them, 90, the ammunition they supplied them, 90 was for the rifle. They gave them 4 rifles, but gave them 90 rounds of ammunition and about 60 rounds of ammunition for the pistol. So how would you be able to confront any threat? Even the smugglers, you can't confront them with 90 rounds of ammunition. How much more a terrorist organization? So we need to be realistic. I mean, we need to take this issue much more seriously.
Just wrap on that point, because it's so important. Basically, we're playing with this, because 90 rounds, if terrorists are coming, staging any onslaught on any community, definitely 90 rounds multiplied by whichever number of officers are available, even if 20 or 50, will not be able to stand them. So while we are talking up a storm about the terrorist threat, on the ground, we're simply not doing enough. That's basically what you're saying.
Absolutely. We are not doing enough. And the boys there, the officers there are angry. They are not happy about what is going on. When I spoke about this issue, they came out to counteract it. No, it's not true. It can never be true. And according to them, they have the weapons. And I asked the question, has the weapons reached the officers on the ground? That was a question nobody was able to answer. Okay, so if you have the guns and they are not gotten to their destination, you've achieved nothing. So I'm sure that it is based on my analysis the last time. That is why finally they decided to get these weapons to them. What if I had not spoken about it? So why do we have to wait until the media picks up an issue before we see it too? It doesn't.
This matter you've raised has really left me wondering about our seriousness, and maybe we have to reach out to Ghana Immigration to find out whether all of this is true. Of course, leadership I don't know whether there will be admissions. But let me bring in Johnson Asante-Twum, Programs Manager with the Small Arms Commission. Thank you for your patience. You could react to some of what has been said, like the fact that even some of our officers manning our borders don't have the requisite ammunition. They are not armed. So if there were any terrorist threat where they find themselves, it would be a slaughter, basically, and the rest of us as a people would be at risk. But I want you to also look at the end of the Small Arms Commission. You've embarked on some programs up north. What exactly have you been up to? What has the integration been like with the security forces? What have the gains been? Do we have Mr. Asante-Twum? Mr. Johnson Asante-Twum, are you still with us?
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Asante-Twum. Did you get the question?
Yes, I heard you.
Okay, please go ahead then.
Right. Yes, so I was just saying good morning to your viewers and also to Adib and Mukhtar, both my very good friends. Thank you for having me. Now, my reaction to all that have been said, I think that they are in the right direction. Just a little bit of caution also that sometimes we should be a bit cautious in giving out a lot of the details because of the very people we seems to circumvent and, protect our people from a lot of the details we give, may be available to them. And so some of the issues we probably could talk about it backstage, albeit trying to advocate, for more support for the security agencies. And I say this particularly with reference to the number of ammunition given to immigration and others. I think that Adib has the best of intentions for the security of this country, and we should support him in that cause. That would be my preliminary reaction. I also think that we need to have a bit more civil responsibility in terms of the citizenry around us and around the border communities in getting them, to stay alert and to be able to provide the necessary information at the right time to the right, sources. And this is something that we need to intensify. The See Something, Say Something campaign has been launched, but we still need to, enhance and intensify it and make sure that the people the message get down to the people who really matter and those who will be the eye and the ear of the security services. You know that the people are everywhere, but the security agencies, cannot be everywhere. And in these matters, we have to rely on the larger population and the vigilance of the citizens to be able to deal with it.
Thank you for that initial comment. Do stay with me because there's a lot more I want you to help us look at. But let me bring in Mukhtar. So here's how we're going to manage this. We're going to speak to a number of people, but we don't want to keep all of you on for too long. So Mukhtar, I'll come to you for your summary comments about moving forward. What the plan is, what you would like to see, let's say in the next fortnight, in the next days, in the next month or so, to show some real pep in terms of our fight against terrorists. Because like has been mentioned by Adib Sani, we appear to be joking with officials who are not even armed. Your comments on that, and then we can call it a morning.
Well, many of these things we'll be talking about, we tend to repeat because they continue to be persistent problems and problems that we should not labor on for too long. Being armed and dealing with this threat, it is not a question of whether they should be armed or not. We need to provide adequate logistics to ensure that our men are confident and safe in doing what they're doing. That is not something we have to tether to another kind of activism for the state to respond to. These are things that should naturally be part of how we deal with the threat. An important point I want to make is that, yes, the launch of the See Something, Say Something campaign, I feel it's great. And yet we lack sustainable efforts to ensure that it goes down to local communities, we localize it, we all embrace it, and ensure that it leads to the goal for which it was launched. Yet we haven't seen that. The second point is that we have huge infrastructure, local infrastructure and resource that we should effectively utilize in dealing with the threat. We did not wait for a foreign organization to come and point to us what the reality of the threat in our country. You've launched a campaign that says, see something, say something. What are they seeing and what should they be saying? What should they be seeing? We don't have that content. People don't know what to look out for when you're looking at vulnerabilities or signs of threats. We don't have that. And that in itself is undermining of the efforts we put into dealing with the threat. I know very well that the national security especially is a counter-terrorism unit with very, very great ideas. I know that the national security, they have a good understanding, a good picture of what the threat is. Very great guys. What we're lacking is either the resources or the commitment to ensure that timely delivery of action is important, to ensure that it is done. It is too slow. The process is too slow. The process is inadequate. We need to rein in and keep ensuring that we put that sense of urgency to get them to act and act quickly in the months coming up.
Okie doke. And that is your roadmap, Mukhtar Mumuni Mukhtar, Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. Mukhtar, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. We'll stay with Adib Sani and Johnson Asante-Chum, and we'll bring in another speaker shortly, another guest. But coming back to Johnson, so looking at the situation, I don't know about what your experience has been going along the northern belt, especially because that's where the threat seems to be focused. We're told mining communities, especially up north, are being targeted. And then you look at certain areas, you look at the Savannah region and its borders with Burkina Faso and other parts of our neighboring countries, and you see that we face quite a threat. Again, going back to the issue of arms, we have the Boko situation still simmering and others. How is the Small Arms Commission feeding into dealing with the arms situation up north?
Very much for the question, and I must say that I couldn't have agreed with Mukhtar even better in terms of the issue of content of See Something, Say Something campaign. I think that it is something that needs to be enhanced, as I mentioned earlier. Now, coming back to your actual question, it is in line with this that the Commission is establishing its presence in some border communities. And as we speak now,
which border communities? Which ones specifically?
Okay, so we have started with PAGA and containerized off with the security agencies in dealing with these threats and these matters that seems to be simmering and that seems to be coming up. So that is, the step that the Commission is taking in dealing with the issues. But
so for now, it is just PAGA.
PAGA and Elubo.
PAGA and Elubo.
And others will be rolled out, yes. And then port also for some other reasons in terms of that come through the port as well. So, but we are also concerned about the issues with the northern stretch, particularly in the places where you mentioned. Of course, everybody knows about Boko, but if you stretch it to places in the Savannah, between Savannah and the Bono East, in an area called Dollar Power, it becomes an even more worrying situation because that seems to be a no man's land between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, and there is a thriving mining business going on there, which feed into the illicit importation and flow of improvised explosive devices or commercial mining explosives, which are used in the mining industry, but of course in the illegal mining settings. And that is a source of worry, you know, as to who can lay hand on any of these explosives. The last time I spoke to you, I mentioned the issue of IEDs, improvised explosive devices,
right,
and how people, you know, could use that to cause mayhem. And so that is one of the issues we have flagged and has, you know, relayed it to those who matter in terms of dealing with this when it comes to the hardcore issue. So these are issues that we deal with on a daily basis, and we are very much concerned about.
Okay, Mr. Asante Twum, just hold for me. I'm going to wrap with Adib Sani shortly, but let me welcome aboard Professor Kwesi Enning of the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center. Prof, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Just hold for me for about a minute and a half, Prof. Let me bring in Adib Sani for his summary comments. So, Adib, we've spoken about a number of issues, and you have harped on the National Action Plan. What would you like to see in the next few days, the next few weeks, and maybe the next few months in terms of a plan proper in dealing with the terrorist scourge?
Okay, so a special mention to Professor Enning, by the way. So Ghana was awoken to the threat in 2016 when the Grand Bassam was attacked, and our national, intelligence agencies mentioned that after Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast, the next likely targets would be Togo and Ghana. Now we have it. Togo has been attacked, and so we need to be proactive. See something, say something is a great initiative, even though it should have come earlier. However, we seem not to be giving it the attention it deserves. I was thinking that immediately government would bring together civil society organizations, NGOs that are on the ground and are already engaging the communities and are doing a lot of work. But it seems we have constricted it to social media infographics. So when we do that, we wouldn't really be able to achieve the desired targets. I don't know whether the government has reached out to the media as the fourth estate, and considering the important role you could have also played in that regard, you need to be sensitized, you need to be educated, and you should be made an integral part of the whole see something, say something agenda. And to what extent have we been able to extend this to the border communities? I mean, Golu, Paga, Hamile, and the rest. So they are conscious, they are alert, they know what is going on. When individuals come into their communities and are looking for accommodation to rent, I mean, have we educated them enough to ask questions rather than just accept the money and integrate these people into their communities? I think we need a lot more work to be done on the see something, say something. And my final word is, we cannot achieve, we wouldn't be able to regulate holistically the proliferation of small arms and light weapons if Small Arms Commission is not made a regulator. If Small Arms Commission continues to be an advisory body, trust me, it's going to complicate our efforts towards regulating the arms space in Ghana.
All right.
And so I would this opportunity to appeal to government to show all the goodwill, the political will, to ensure that the Small Arms Commission is made a regulator if really we are committed to regulating arms space.
Adib Sani, thank you so much for joining the conversation, for enriching it as you have. Professor Enning, thank you so much for holding for us. Adib Sani makes quite an assertion when he suggests that, I mean, he's been talking about the fact that our security officials, immigration and others, a lot of them are not even armed at our borders. And that it's only, in fact, he says only yesterday that some immigration officers got, ammunition with about 90 rounds. And he questions ammunition, automatic rifles, 90 rounds. What would that mean if terrorists were to hit any, of our bordering outlets, from Paga to other places? The Savannah region is exposed, and we've been talking about, we have a chart that points to the insurgency from the northwestern part of Benin, funneling into the northern belt of Togo and then spilling over into the northeastern belt of Ghana, as well as capturing some southern parts of Burkina Faso. You look at the trajectory between the 9th of November 2021, 11th May 2022, 14th and 15th July 2022, 15th June 2022, and the latest one that got very close to us, that aircraft which accidentally targeted and killed 7 teenagers in Magba in Togo, just the 9th and 10th of July 2022. What picture does that paint for you about our readiness to deal with the terrorist situation? Hello, Prof.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Good. It paints the picture that I certainly have painted the last 15 years, in which my younger brother, Adib, and Mr. Johnson, being a government official, have so eloquently spoken about. The picture on the canvas points to a couple of things. One, that the rhetoric from Accra is fantastic. The operational, hands-on, logistical inputs into capacitating those at the front lines and within the territory to be able to respond and to degrade is almost non-existent. Make my point very clear. In August, between July and September 2020, I traveled around every single border post in this country and wrote the United Nations report on conflict vulnerability in Ghana, focusing particularly on the 6 northern region. That painted a dire picture of unpreparedness, of empty rhetoric, of a penchant for waxing lyrical and not placing the logistics in place. I went to Kulungugu, I went to Pusiga, I went to Paga, I went to Hamle, I was in Boko. Level of preparedness is zero.
Wow, the level of preparedness is zero.
Please let me finish. Wow. As part of that tapestry, I traveled around and wrote a major small arms paper that pinpointed using GPS location systems specific areas along borders of Dubo to Hamle, showing the tracks, the directional flows, once more lack of capacity to scan equipment. Part of that tapestry is that we've become a hub for small arms flows, some coming as far as DRC and Central African Republic, and certainly from La Côte d'Ivoire. So the narrative is fantastic. But we are a net exporter of the instruments and infrastructure for violence. So if you follow the sheer volumes of fertilizer that is smuggled out of Ghana, it raises particular concerns as to what this fact all this fertilizer is used for. Because fertilizer and particular types of fertilizer form critical ingredients in the IEDs that both Sammy and Johnson were talking about. Okay, but we don't seem to link fertilizer smuggling to feeding that infrastructure for violence. Not only that, if we understand the political economy of criminal networks around all our boundaries, I think Accra dollar power was mentioned. But that's actually a very tiny part of it. If you look at the role of Tinga, you look at the massive role of cattle rustling around the Kwanta area, the thousands of armed young people of almost no particular identity and nationality who are all around this area, then it raises particular concerns about the narrative. But let me make this point clear. You see, for those who don't agree with me and get angry and seek to call me and say all kinds of things, it's a waste of time. Because the evidence is very clear that the attacks may not happen now because we are a net facilitator of what happens elsewhere. And in terms of the analysis and the calculus, it doesn't make sense when you can sell your cattle for money, you can mine for gold, you can get explosives and small arms to also hit the country that provides you with the means for violence. So part of our safety net is that the borders are non-existent and allows the free flow of weaponry, of explosives, of the component parts for IEDs. Because this report that I wrote on small arms focuses on the concerns of particular European countries about how IED parts found in Mali, Niger, northeastern Nigeria, sometimes have bearings and markings of explosives that have been purchased by this country.
Right.
Okay. So, I don't think we are going to be hit because it doesn't make strategic sense.
Did you just say you don't think we are going to be hit because it doesn't make strategic sense? Is that what you said?
Because we facilitate the actions elsewhere. You see, so, I mean, if you get fertilizer being smuggled in thousands of tons, that becomes a critical ingredient for your IED.
Yes.
If you have the detonators, if you have the cords coming. I mean, go to Tudu, for example. If you want those who make boreholes. Look, this is not rocket science. My only worry is that when Sam Johnson, myself speak this way, then people think that we are exposing their incompetence and they get angry. But that is not it. As Ghanaians and as citizens who are worried also about our own future and seek to make an input into the national conversation, there must be a certain tolerance and acceptance of alternative interpretations being brought onto the table. So whilst I agree with my colleagues, my assessment right now is that because we facilitate, knowingly or unknowingly, the ability to perpetrate these actions elsewhere, then it doesn't make rational sense to also destroy the source of some of these equipment.
So for now, we've given the terrorists incentive not to attack us. But quickly, how do you react to the nomadic and migratory pastoral elements? Because we see them spread across the region, and in some way, whether in Togo or other places, they also feed into the jihadist element. Put that side by side with what the report says. The latest Konrad Adenauer Stiftung report on page 11. It makes mention of the fact that, like all countries in the sub-region, Ghanaian and Togolese societies are riven by persistent community tensions, fueled by economic and territorial inequalities and disparities in access to political space and decision-making, and it goes on and on. Structural problems in the sub-region, and it mentions quite a number of them. Economically, with what is happening across the sub-region, and especially in Ghana, inflation, fuel prices, the exchange rate, and everything else going on. As we speak now, there's someone who has been, posting time and again on our live Facebook feed, tell the president to pay NAPCO personnel. All of these filtering, simmering elements, how do they affect the discussion we're having?
I think it fertilizes the ground for recruitment, the discourses around sympathy, but it is a failure of governance that is resulting in a sense of victimhood, dispossession, and a sense of exclusion that creates this false impression in people that striking a blow against your own state is beneficial. But that is very weak and unnecessary. So I think we need a much more nuanced, informed, sensitive, inclusive forms of governance that listens and assuages the fears of minorities and excluded people. That way we can have this broader sense of community, of cohesion, and of building that resilience in which this empty sloganeering of see something, say something. What are we supposed to see? No, what are the contours of what we are supposed to see? What are we supposed to look out for?
That is the big question. What are we even supposed to look out for? But
until we move away from empty sloganeering to concrete, practical, hands-on, what do landlords need to look out for? What does Mame Abna, who sells wache, look out for?
So Prof, just hold for me, because I will be coming to you shortly, right after engaging Johnson Asante Twum.
My battery is running out. I have just about 10%.
Okay, then go ahead, because I wanted to wrap with you on the National Action Plan bit. The last time we spoke, we were talking about it.
Because you see, it is just high fallacy. Just like the National Security Strategy document. We need to ground it. What does the woman in the market who sells Gary, what she should be looking for? That Christian who normally bought just an olonka of Gary for 1 month suddenly is buying 10 olonka. What has happened? This boy who used to buy beans, 10 cedis, suddenly is buying 100 cedis and is buying different types of dried beans. The woman who has the little corner shop in that day, suddenly they are asking for kerosene. They are asking for petrol. They are asking for this. Until we ground this empty rhetoric of see something within our localities where ordinary people will pick the critical intelligence and have the confidence to pass it on, that they will not be exposed, then it will remain what it is, empty sloganeering, fanciful on the outside, totally empty.
Thank you so much, Professor Enning, and we're grateful that you made the time to speak to us. That is Professor Kwesi Enning, who is with the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. I'll wrap with you, Johnson Asante Twum. 2 quick things. So your summary comments on the conversation we've had, and then secondly, mention was made, it skips my mind whether it was Adib Sani or Mukhtar Mumuni Mukhtar. I think it was Adib who suggested that the Small Arms Commission ought to become the regulator, de facto regulator, and de jure as well. What is your thinking about that? Is that something you're willing to take up as a commission? Is this something you can do, that you have the capacity to do? Hello, Johnson.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you now. Did you get the question?
Yes, I did.
Please go ahead.
And I was saying, yes, okay. So thank you to Prof. Enning for eloquently, hammering on the issues. The Small Arms Commission originally was supposed to have been set up as a regulator in the space. For some reason, in fact, the cabinet memo under His Excellency President John Akakpo that, gave the approval for the setting up of the commission, requested for the commission to be set up as a regulator. Somewhere along the line, something happened, and then the commission was set up as an advisory body. So this is how the commission was envisaged to have been, but then something else happened. So it is not about we being willing to take on. It is a must that we have a regulator in the space to be able to deal with the issues, that we are seeing now. And to deal with them effectively, you do not need an advisory body. You need a regulator with all the powers and authority of a regulator to stamp its feet on the matters and the issues that are rearing its head. The issues, mentioned earlier are multifaceted, and we need to look at it, from different dimensions. I told you about what we are doing in Elubu and Paga and also in Tema, but we are doing this in collaboration with our neighboring countries, such that we'll be able to fight this together and share information among ourselves. So under the auspices of UNDP and the German Foreign Federal Office, we have to do this with Cote d'Ivoire and also Burkina Faso, which means that wherever we select to set up these offices, there must be a corresponding office from a neighboring country to make sure that information flow, is swift and we are able to deal with the matters as quickly as they come, which is why these centers have been selected. So we will deal with them in that manner. And so we are also appealing to some of our neighboring states to come on board, because we cannot deal with this, as a country alone. It has to be a multi-pronged approach, and it has to be a cross-border issues, because we are dealing with a cross-border crime. You need to tackle it, with a cross-border mindset and a cross-border approach. I agree with Professor Enin when he says that we seem to have become a supplier of infrastructure and devices, to some criminal network unknowingly. But then we need to also put in place the measures. The only place that I seem to have a different opinion is the issues of attack, because as they push down, they see, these places as places of, resource routes that they can get, especially the Gulf of Guinea state of Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and Benin. And already Cote d'Ivoire and Togo have had their fair share of attack, which means that, Ghana is not immune to this attack, because as we keep on denying them access to those resources, the push will be harder, and then they will have no choice, but to hit and get access to the resources. But of course, something is being done, and the security forces are working, except that, as I said earlier, it has to be a shared responsibility with the communities. And there seems to be a concentration of information and authority at the top. And that is why I asked for, the enhancement of the Say Something campaign, so that it is driven down to the populace and to the people to know what they should see in the first place and what they should say and to who at what time. These are critical matters that we need to address, in the Say Something campaign as we enhance it going forward.
Johnson Asante Chum, thank you so much for engaging as Programs Manager with the Small Arms Commission. Very important point he makes at the end, that per the original role that was to be attached to the Small Arms Commission, they were supposed to be regulator. What happened in the mix? We heard from him. We also heard from Adib Sani, Executive Director, Center for Human Security and Peace Building, Mukhtar Mumuni Mukhtar, Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, and Professor Kwesi Ening, of course, with the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Up next, we're going to be talking about COLA, cost of living allowance, 15% accepted by government. But what are the latest dynamics, and when will labor unions see the impact of this? We also have an interaction with the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, all still to come as we engage you as well on the AM show. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. We've been talking security and the terrorist threat with our guests. We're bringing you more on the cost of living allowance, which feeds into the conversation about security and independent broadcasting later on the show. But let me welcome aboard Bernice Abubedu Lansa.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm giving you the eye.
Good
doing
morning
very
to you.
well.
Yeah. I'm also doing well. That was a very interesting conversation you had. And I think, just like all our panelists said, we are hearing a lot, but we are not seeing a lot done on the ground. And that's the problem, because the real deal is on the ground.
It's on the ground.
And so we just hope that something more tangible will be seen, and then we'll be making headway when it comes to awareness. Because
Look,
this is
scary.
security. Yeah?
We don't have a national action plan. So basically, I see my church, thankfully, again, I don't like mentioning, but it has a heavy security presence every Sunday. But I know that is not replicated across churches here in Accra.
You're right.
Professor Enning talks about the smuggling situation. Because you know some of these fertilizers actually have components that are used for explosive devices. It's happening in Ghana, funneling from Ghana to other countries. Our security forces, as Adib Sani points out, are not properly resourced. Immigration, getting some munitions only yesterday, and 90 rounds, what can that do when terrorists are attacking you with? Because they don't come playing, they come with the full haul.
Yeah.
And so many other dynamics that have got me very worried. So I do not know what your take is, but there are so many concerns. And
hopefully we will hear from the National Security Minister again. And also it will be good to hear from the President, I think, considering the threats and the latest report about Ghanaians being involved with some of these groups. It will be great to hear the President and hear if there's an action plan, like we did with COVID, you know, and we moved full force. I think it will be a good thing to hear from the President. I hope we hear from him.
And Prof. Enning says something that got my heart skipping beats. He says our level of preparedness is 0. Time will tell.
Time will tell indeed. But thank you so much, Benjamin, for holding the fort.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the cola conversation you're about to have.
Yes. And
I don't have cola in the studio, but I'll choose something.
Not only cola, but here's what is happening. The TUC is vowing to end what they describe as a class system in the payment administration. It says it favors Article 71 holders. I really want to know this morning how they intend to end what they refer to as that class system. And so I'll be speaking to Mr. Kwabnotu, who is with the TUC, and he joins us on the phone with more on this. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us. Hello, Mr. Otu.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you here. Let me just start our conversation with an update on the cost of living allowance. Last week, we heard from the TUC. We were told then that the Minister for Finance was going to come out with an implementation strategy on when to start paying and how the payments will be done. Have you heard? Is there an update on that particular implementation strategy?
Okay, I have personally not heard anything about it, but it doesn't mean that my bosses haven't heard. It's possible that they are negotiating, and it's a normal practice after negotiations. We then have to also negotiate the implementation processes and program for it. Yeah.
How long does that usually take?
It shouldn't take more than a week. It usually doesn't take more than a week. But it depends on the actors involved. If you have people that busy, it can stretch over a week.
Right, Mr. Otu, so let's zoom into our main conversation today. The TUC is vowing to end what you refer to as a class system in the pay administration. How do you intend to do this?
Okay, so first of all, the class system is where you have a situation where the bulk of the people are under single span, receiving very low salaries, and it translates into low pensions when they retire.
Yeah.
Then you also have a few privileged people under Article 71, but also some levels in the state-owned enterprises receiving what everybody thinks is a hefty pay. And again, it translates into a hefty pension when they retire. And I mean, the class system becomes even more revealing when you realize that the group of public sector officials that do not contribute to pension actually earn better pension when they retire. Those on SNIT who contribute to pension. And then if you take the SNIT itself, you have these huge inequities where you have someone, the bulk of the people down there earning about 300 Ghana cedis in a month. And then you have somebody on the same pension scheme earning about 142,000 Ghana cedis a month. That, for us, is obscene, and it ought to be eliminated. How we intend to do this, there is an ongoing review process of the single spine together with the other pay regimes in the public sector. And as the Secretary General noted in his press statement, we have our minds and ears firmly fixed on the outcome of that process. And we think that together with government must come round and work with us to ensure that this review process thoroughly overhaul the public sector pay regime to make it fairer, but also to enhance the pay levels of particularly people at the bottom of the pay structure.
It's early days yet, but what are you hoping to do? Are you hoping to have, for example, the pay structure of Article 71 holders looked at such that there's a reduction in how much they earn, or you want that of public sector workers to match up to theirs? What exactly are you looking for?
A combination of all that, but of course, in pay administration, it is difficult to say reduce somebody's pay. What we could do is actually to say, let's raise the bottom. So that is one area we'll be looking for. But also, we have to have a mechanism that ensures that we are all on an integrated salary structure so that everybody knows which group is receiving what percentage annually, so that we arrest this escalating imbalance, inequity between the various groups within the public sector. We are looking for a situation where we could have, for example, a truly single spine salary structure on which every group's salary will be determined. It's not out of place to have Article 71 on the single spine salary structure. And even if they remain a separate salary structure, it is possible technically to link them so that whatever is given to the bottom is related one way or the other to the top. And we arrest this escalating inequities which we observe within the public sector pay space.
Dr. Ote, I was shocked to hear that some teachers who've worked for about 2 decades earn as little as 2,500 or 2,800. Now, when you compare them to what other Article 71 office holders earn at the end of the month, the difference is astronomical. And so looking at how we would, like you've just said, it's difficult to say we're going to reduce the pay structure. It's likely that those at the bottom will have to catch up. What will it take us? And I'm asking this because even 20% COLA is difficult for government to achieve. So with this initiative that you're embarking on, how long do you think it would take us to achieve this?
I mean, so we are in a very difficult economic situation at the moment. We recognize that. We are not oblivious to the challenges facing government. But that in itself also means that if you take, for example, Article 71, they themselves must demonstrate, they must live the difficulties they tell us we are in. And that, for example, will mean that they slow down on their own increment. So, for example, the president has given a commitment that in 2021 and beyond, they will not take a salary increase. That could go a long way to slow the gap. But it also hasn't had to end there. It means that you actually push up the bottom. And I mean, if you check the last emolument report by Professor Yen Tiamwa, they stated something clearly, that at no point should Article 71 be given a salary increase higher than what was given to the public sector, and actually define that they should get something lower than what the public sector got. In all of these things, I think it has to be done within a time frame. And I think if we give ourselves, like, say, 5 years, it should be possible for us to eliminate the obscene inequities we see in the public sector administration. We are not saying that teachers and MPs should earn the same salary. What we are saying is that the current inequities are unjustified. You cannot explain it by any means, and it has to be bridged. So we are looking to see within a period, say 5 years, that the teachers have moved, and they have moved in tandem with the Article 71 and getting closer to their pay and other conditions of service. But we should also remind ourselves that there are people not in Article 71, the SOEs, the starters, that are actually earning higher than Article 71 office holders. So we know that within the public space, some people earn twice the salary of the President of the Republic. And it is important that we bring all of those people into the discussion.
A quick one.
We tend to focus on Article 71 alone, when in fact, there are people, CEOs, whose rent allowance alone is getting to about half of the president's pay. And it ought to look at all of that as well.
All right. Doc, why can't teachers earn as much as MPs do? And what goes into determining the salary? Let's focus on teachers for now, and you can include other public sector workers if we have the time. But what goes into determining how much a teacher earns?
That's a very technical question. So in pay administration, you have something we call compensable factors. So for example, the level of risk incorporated in the work you do, the level of knowledge and qualification, experience, the responsibility placed on you. So you score all of these things, and then you determine how much each public sector is supposed to get, how much a particular job is supposed to get. But I mean, we have done that for teachers and all the workers on single-span salary structure as far back as 2010. We did that when we placed people on the single-span salary structure. I don't know whether we have done that for the MPs, for example, or ministers, for example. We haven't done that. And it's important that we do all of these things together to define a scientific relationship between what a teacher should get and what an MP should get, and monitor it over time, so that we don't end up after 10 years with a wide gap nobody can explain.
Now, just with you, finally on the issue of dealing with what you refer to as a class system in the pay administration. In other jurisdictions, politicians are considered public sector workers, and they are included in the general public sector pay structure. Do you think it's something we should explore?
Yeah, so in other jurisdictions, they do that. Some other jurisdictions don't do that. So in African context, for example, if you review salary, the politicians in Africa have always been treated as a class, different from the rest of other public sector workers. But I definitely think that we need to explore what you just said. And let me give you an example. The very first emolument committee, the Presidential Emolument Committee set up by His Excellency, the late President Rawlings, the so-called Green Street Committee, actually placed Article 71 office holders on the existing public sector salary structure. So it was extended to accommodate them with the President of the Republic at the head, at the top of that salary structure. I think that we should explore that possibility, because that way everybody will feel that the politicians are not telling us that times are hard, when in fact they themselves are allocating a chunk of the money for themselves. I think it's something worth considering, particularly in our case.
I'm grateful.
If you the agitations.
I'm grateful for your time this morning. Dr. Kwabena Otu is Director of Labour Policy and Research at the TUC, and we've just been discussing the latest move by the organization to have the class system in pay administration looked at again. They say they want to bridge the gap. But Bernard J., who's General Secretary of Public Services Workers Union, also joins me for his take on this particular one. So quickly, sir, we've been told by Dr. Otu what the intention is, how they hope to execute this. Your quick thoughts on this decision by the TUC.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. J.
Yeah, if you could just come again.
All right, I'm saying that I have been discussing with Dr. Otu, who is with the TUC, the latest decision by the organization to deal with what they refer to as, or what it refers to as, the class system in the peer administration. He's been sharing a lot with us. And we ended on that note about considering whether Article 71 office holders should be considered as public sector workers and put on the general pay system. And he said that would be a good idea. I want to know what your thoughts are.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I associate myself with what Dr. Otu has said, and we are part of the TUC. So all that TUC has put up out yesterday at the press conference, we are totally for it. And yes, I must say that politicians are public servants. I mean, they are serving the public. They are serving citizens of this country. It's only that they are elected and we are appointed. That is the only difference that I would say is quite significant. But other than that, we are all serving the public, and therefore, if we are going to remunerate this class of workers, then we must do it in such a way that it is fair, and then it is to the benefit of the country as a whole, as opposed to the system we currently have, which is highly unfair and skewed towards Article 71 office holders.
We've heard about what some teachers earn in this country, woefully inadequate. Are you able to tell us what some of your members who belong to the general public, the Public Services Workers Union, how much do they earn, averagely?
Well, averagely on the single spine, as we kept saying, salary levels are quite low. Averagely, the average person will be a degree holder, which will be about level 16 to 18 on the single spine, depending also on how long the person has worked. And that is just around the 2,000 figure. And after taxes and everything are taken, other statutory deductions are taken out. The average public sector worker is not going home with anything more than 2,000 cedis.
And does this include allowances, or that is paid separately?
Well, most of my members actually do not have allowances. Basically, I mean, go to CNC, go to National Theatre, and those other places. They barely have any allowance. When you go to NCC, you find the worker has only one allowance, which is just about 10% of what is earning. And basically, that is it. But majority of our members do not have any allowances. We are in a system where every allowance you take to fair wages to go and negotiate, they give you 1,001 reasons why you are not qualified for that allowance. Now, let's improve the pay also so that people will be properly remunerated. That has also become a challenge. So it makes the situation of the average public sector worker quite dire. And we need to make conscious efforts to make sure that we correct all these challenges that we have.
So for you, what does ending the class system mean? Does it mean shoring up or increasing the salaries of public sector workers, or reducing that of Article 71 office holders?
Well, thank you very much. Ending the class system, for me, simply means that we change the way we remunerate Article 71 and then other public sector workers. I heard my colleague Kwabna earlier telling you that when we started this Fourth Republic in former President Rawlings, the late former President Rawlings' regime, Article 71 office holders were placed on the same salary structure as what was existing in the public sector at the time. The only thing is they will be at the top, but when you take the ratio or the relativities, the gap will not be as big as it is now. But what we have now is just unacceptable. There are various options we can choose. The thing about these things is that there is no fixed system or one perfect system that you say you want to adopt. You must be pragmatic in these things and agree on a system that will be consistent, that will be transparent, that will be equitable, so that everybody will be, that is fair, that is the final thing, that everybody will feel treated fairly. And that's the system we should be looking at adopting. We can still decide to have a different structure for Article 71, but it must be linked. It must be linked so that what is being paid to the Article 71 as it is now, that it's not so huge as compared to the teachers or other public sector. I think that is what we are looking at. The difference and the conditions, and not to talk of the other allowances and the rest. I think Article 71 office holder should be able to subscribe to DSTV without the state paying for subscription for. If it's in the office, it's understandable. But official residents, with all the freebies and other things they have. So we need to look at these things holistically, from the allowances to the salary itself, and then the ex gratia. These are the things that are killing. I mean, people work for 30 years, 40 years in the public sector, and we are bold. These are Article 71 office holders who are the decision makers, are bold to say that they are not entitled to end of service benefits. But you have an Article 71 office holder, apart from all the freebies and the allowances, and then the salary they are taking, they will still take huge ex gratia at the end of their term of office. We think it's unacceptable. It's a system that should be scrapped. It's a class system, as my colleague has described it, and our Secretary General has stated. And we think that we should scrap all this. And what we are saying is that let's have a holistic system. Let's agree on a new structure. We are waiting next month to see what the single spine review that is being done will bring. I have my doubts as to what is coming, if it will really address the concerns that we have. But it can only work if we are able to deal with the Article 71 issue as well. And it is, nobody should say it's an entrenched clause in the Constitution. The Constitution didn't say Article 71 should be paid so much, maybe 1 to 50 or 1 to 80 when it comes to the public, relation to other public sector workers. That is not what the Constitution says. The Constitution is only established in a mechanism by which, or a procedure by which their salaries should be determined. But when we go and sit down and we are determining these things, we should look at the levels as compared to what other public sector workers are earning. And then we come back and say things are hard, things are difficult. But some people are getting way above. It is not showing that things are hard or things are difficult. And that's why we refer to it as a class system. And we need to correct it as soon as practicable.
Thank you, Mr. J, for contributing to the discussion this morning. Bernard J is General Secretary of the Public Services Workers Union, and we've been talking about the TUC's vow to end what it refers to as a class system in Ghana's pay administration. Let's now have a conversation with the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, GIBA. It is organizing its annual general meeting this week in Kumasi. Cecil Sunkwa-Mills is its president, and he joins us via Zoom. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining the program. Tell us more about what your AGM will focus on.
Good morning to you, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. The Ghana Independent Broadcasters will be hosting its AGM in Kumasi on the 21st. Basically, we're going to be taking stock of events for the past, this time is 3 years because of COVID, and we'll look at some achievements that have happened in the period, and also some challenges. So basically, that is what we'll be looking at.
Will the issue of the broadcasting bill feature in there? Because I know that at the time it was topical. There were contributions from Giba about how we needed this and when we needed to get work done on it.
So, fortunately, I also represent the private broadcasting in industry on the board for the Ministry of Information. So we have currently been given an insight of a progress plan for the broadcasting bill. There apparently is a plan, a rollout plan. And we're waiting to have that plan rolled out, where we would see the input that we gave. Some of the input also goes to look at how the NMC and the NCA will work together for the industry. We should realize that with time, we've seen infrastructure and content converge in the industry. So it's time for us to look at how we work with that kind of a framework, and how we can also delve into regulation of the industry with that kind of insight in mind.
Would you say we've slowed down a bit on it? Because I remember even at the time when there were some arrests made in relation to 2 young boys who had allegedly murdered a colleague of theirs because of what they had seen on TV. There was a lot of buzz, there was conversation, there was a drive. Would you say we've slowed down on our plan to get this as soon as possible?
Definitely, we would have expected to have seen the bill come out much faster. But on our side, we have actually been pressurizing the responsible stakeholders and the ministry to have this come through. Besides that, we have also focused on a couple of other areas in terms of growth of our industry, and I'm happy to say that we've seen some record growth since we took over last year, September. We've got almost 17 new members, and what this does for us, not just a bit of fundraising, but what it does is it allows us to also be a lot more empowered in terms of advocacy, and at the same time help to push ethical broadcasting, and also spread out a lot of capacity building initiatives to a lot more stations in the country.
Mr. Sunkwame, I am glad you just mentioned ethical broadcasting, because it leads me to my next question. I correct me if I'm wrong. I know that to be a member of GIBA is voluntary. So the fact that you have a private broadcasting house or company doesn't necessarily mean you're automatically a member of GIBA. But I'm sure GIBA is interested in some of these news stations that have come up, where we see a lot of unethical broadcasting, unethical journalism being practiced. What is your idea on how to contribute in solving this as GIBA?
The first approach is actually, we'll go back to talking about the bill, the broadcasting bill, because some of the clauses that we have discussed and recommended in that bill tends to deal with the convergence of content management versus frequency, where you can look at sanctions, etc., but based on both ends. So if right now you find if it's about content infringement, you've got the NMC having to deal with that separately with some limited powers of fighting. And then you've got the NCA, which actually is granting the license and the platform also on the other side, but cannot do much about content. So there's a need for convergence. So the broadcasting bill actually carries some key portions where we can discuss. There would be opportunity to discuss further, but we see that as one of the tools. The second one is what we're doing now is, whilst we're bringing in a lot of members like I mentioned, to join the association. We have a code of ethics, which we're quite serious about. So you would notice that most of our members, there's been a few cases where some individuals have infringed, but we actually are very active to make sure that our members are in line in terms of the type and quality of broadcasting that they actually churn out.
What happens to your members who do not abide by the ethics you've just spoken about?
Yeah, so we actually have, we also have in the code that we have, there is some punitive measures, including expelling of members, including suspension. And some of it we try to also remedy, to fix, so remedy. So based on the offense and what goes, we actually reach out to the principals. And then there's a process that we go through to have that done. But it's actually all documented in our code of conduct. So we do have punitive measures for members who do that. And there's a process for that.
So majority of professionals who work in broadcasting and who work as journalists in this country belong to private organizations, some of who are members of GIBA. In this year's Press Freedom Index, Ghana scored poorly, and there was a new scoring system that was used, and there were many, factors that influence every country's general score. So you had issues of the economy, security, and the likes. And for Ghana, under economic, our worst score was under economic, and it raised concerns about remuneration for journalists, and it gave reason for people like Kujopon Nkrumah and others to talk about how journalists are paid in this country and the need for employers to look at that. I don't know if that has come to the attention of GIBA and whether it will feature at your annual general meeting, but your general thoughts on this particular issue and what could be done to ensure that journalists are sorted out properly, and broadcasters as well.
It has definitely come to our attention, and we have had discussions and mainly spoken about two different areas. The first area is look internally and look at enhancing how we can increase revenue for stations. However, you find that the whole environment has also changed. A couple of years ago, there was the advertising revenue that was available to the industry did not have the impact of online broadcasting, other online tools that came through, in social media, etc. This has actually eroded a huge portion of the revenue that stations would make in terms of advertising and sale of airtime. We have looked at a situation where we actually upscale the industry players so that they look at how they can also take advantage of what has come in rather as a challenge. Some stations are actually looking at doing this quite well. And we've even seen stations appear completely who are not members. They're not going through NCA, and they're sitting online and they're making revenue. So we're looking at how we can actually achieve this. The second one is to look at exactly the way our landscape is now in terms of regulation and the issuing of licenses. Yes, we agree that the Constitution gives every business the opportunity to reach out and get a license. Anybody can actually go that as a business. Now we have almost exhausted a lot of the frequencies in most of the areas. It is, we have, if I should say, we have almost 490 radio stations. We have 114 TV stations. We may be the highest in Africa, if not the world. And this actually has an impact on stations' ability to generate revenue, because remember, the advertising revenue for the country is of a certain size, and not to talk about the impact of COVID, which came through and eroded quite a lot of possibilities for stations. And then we also have had the online impact. So it's also a conversation with regulatory authorities, etc. That have we issued licenses? Have we crowded the space too much? But this is a conversation, and this also leads to a lot of stations on the edge, and then people will try to make money any way they can, etc. So this is a discussion that we need to have, and then make sure that the bill allows these things to happen, and also regulatory authorities look at the best way to manage this. We've seen that because of the crowding in of a lot of stations, we've seen that now they've also recommended a reduction of the radius of broadcast for stations. So these are all things that are we doing it well, but we need to discuss this and make sure that we're growing appropriately, and we can actually feed the station, because when you feed the station can make sure that the journalists get paid properly and remunerated properly.
Finally,
so these are the two areas that we need.
All right. Sorry, I thought you had ended there. Finally, Mr. Sunkwamils, if there's any other thing we need to know about the annual general meeting, do let us know as we wrap up the conversation.
No, so for the first time, we actually also bringing together all regional coordinators. We successfully were able to elect regional coordinators for all the 16 regions in the country, since we had an increase in the number of regions. And we're bringing their deputies also together for orientation. Now, this is key for the growth, and we've already seen the impact of the growth that we've experienced by putting in this structure and making it serious. The other thing we'll be looking at is how we can resource these coordinators, not just financially, but also with skills, etc., so they can continue to act on our behalf on the ground and contribute towards national development communication. So those are some of the key things. One of the things we also discussed is tax compliance of stations. We do not want any stations to fall foul of any fiduciary requirements in terms of tax, and at the same time to make sure that all taxes that hit the industry are appropriate and fair. So these are some of the issues that we'll also discuss.
All the best, sir. Cecil Sunkwamils is president of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, and we've been discussing issues surrounding the sector, plus at the association's annual general meeting. You're watching the AM show. I'm Bernice Abubedulansa. When we come back, we'll be taking your comments. Remember, we've had a discussion about the threats of terrorism. We've also spoken about the TUC's vow to end the class system in Ghana's pay administration. Do stay for details.
Well, here we are again. But it's Abubedulansa.
You are too mischievous, you are so mischievous. Why are you so naughty?
Should I make mischief my middle name?
Maybe you should. Well,
you never know.
It's now time to take your comments on the big stories we've been discussing this morning. And while we wait for you to call us, we'll just get onto Facebook and pick your comments on this particular one, on the TUC saying the class system in pay administration must end now. And you see the picture of the Secretary General of the TUC.
And specifically in favor of Article 71 office holders. That's
yes.
what makes it even more interesting, that twist.
Yep. So we are taking your comments now. Nana Osei Kwabena says, wow, I'm beginning to believe in Ghana. Yeah, and there are 3 likes to that, and so there are people who agree with him. Kwesi Nyako, who is our top fan, thank you, Kwesi, says, unpopular, this Article 71. In addition to creating the class society, it is also creating a lazy society. These days, the youth will want to be a politician. A politician who will add nothing to the GDP, but his ex gratia will be waiting for him. There's more to that. We would like to see more of what Kwesi Nyako is saying. A talkative politician. All that these politicians do is to borrow. They don't think to ameliorate what they come to meet, and they say Article 71. We must link productivity to pay.
I agree.
Remember this conversation you had?
Yeah.
And the government had
productivity versus
he was taken out of context. But this one, this viewer here thinks that we should actually do that with the politicians. Thus, the civil servant or the average worker needs Article 71. Okay, I think there's misunderstanding of what Article 71 exactly means.
No, I don't think so. The person is saying then, yes, public sector worker, but of course, within that bracket, we have Article 71 office holders. This person is looking at the broader spectrum rather than the narrow Article 71 office holders. So if they are producing more, give them better than the politicians who may not exactly be that productive.
Well, Harun Ewusi says, long overdue, Ghana is an animal farm. Let's take more of your comments here. And Emmanuel says, please, these leaders of TUC and organized labor need our support. And you remember during the call-out conversation when we had a lot of teachers calling in, they expressed a lot of confidence and goodwill towards their leadership, and they felt that this time round they had earned their trust. And so we are seeing that play out. There are 2 replies to that, to Emmanuel's comment. Let's see those 2 replies quickly. Albert says, is it not the same leaders who negotiated for the 4% and 7% increments? For me, I'll just sit back and watch them.
So obviously someone
not every, of course, you won't get everybody being on the side of the leadership. Emmanuel says, well, Francis says now or never. Okay, let's take a few more. Akamieza says, terminate Article so-called 71 that the 4 years of non-performing MPs are using to disburse taxpayers' money within themselves. This is a right thing that a good citizen should demonstrate about. Andrew says, good move. I hope it is not mere talk, but action will follow. Eric says, this, I guess, will let us know those who really want to serve our dear nation. And Tedu George says, we are with you. He thinks it's absolute, and he's quite harsh here. He says absolute nonsense. And Osei Yabwa Edmond says, where were you all this while? If you're able to do this alone, you'll be a goat of all time. Please don't back down on this. We are with you. And for those who don't understand,
so
goat,
who wants the charge
to
continue.
Yeah, goat simply means greatest of all time. So King Adabo says, if you succeed in doing this and don't do anything again for workers, it's fine. And he adds a hashtag, Article 71 nonsense must cease now. Kojo Poko Entry Boesiako says, a step in the right direction. Emmanuel also thinks this is a good move, and Augustine Diewo says, good. Our last comment, Chris Kafu says, fast cry, because most of TUC people don't enjoy that.
The way you went when the fast cry, like, we're going to cry.
Yeah, quickly. He wants this to be done so quickly, but Benjamin, I mean, for me, we must sit back and ask ourselves as a country whether it is fair for a teacher who's been working for 2 decades to earn 2,500 cedis.
Some of them earn less than that.
Yes, and the TUC...
And not to talk about what they will pension off with, because, mind you, their pension will be factored into what they were... that one guy is more miserable. Let's not even...
That is what I was just coming to, because the TUC is also concerned about our pensions and how, we do the entire calculation where some people who worked for so many years earn very, very little, and the take-home is very terrible. I think something drastic should be done. I was reading about a country, sorry, the name has just escaped, where teachers are top earners.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There are so many.
I think Canada is one of them. Yeah.
Scandinavian countries, no wonder usually they are very high on the Human Development Index and all of that. They treat teachers, such professionals very well. It is here. And I agree. Sometimes a lot of people say it's in this country that we don't respect teachers and all of that. Go to other jurisdictions. Go to Norway. Go to other places. So why the disparities? And here, I don't know, the system has been rigged. I'm sorry, in favor of certain specific leaders, political leaders. Political leaders should be distributing the pie. Here, the political leaders corner the pie and eat it by themselves and give the crumbs to citizens.
It's terrible, but I think that from what we hear, a lot of people agree with this call or this decision by the TUC to scrap this class system, and it will also reduce a lot of the corruption we see. So then, like someone said, if you're going in, it means you're going in to serve. You're not going in because of what you can get at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So as a politician, you know that this is because you have something to offer, you have ideas to share, you have contributions to make in the development of our laws, then you're going.
It will make it unattractive to those who are coming in because they just want to line their pockets. That way, we'll be able to filter out those elements. But you're still free to call, share your thoughts with us.
We have a few minutes to take about two calls.
If you can make it in 0302-211-691 extension 2, if you can.
Well, it looks like today we have another number. We've got a new number, so let me just announce. There's 055-661-4049, 055-661-4049. It's okay, when you do this for a long time, you just do it off the cuff.
It falls off the tongue.
Yeah, so we've got a few minutes. If you can just call us and let us know what you make of the key issues we've been discussing this morning. The first has to do with security, the threats, and whether we are doing enough to deal with the threat that keeps getting closer and closer. Now we are told that there are people who've been taken out of this country, trained, brought back, reintegrated. That is troubling. That is problematic. There's also the angle of see something, say something. What are we seeing? What are we saying? What are we looking out for? And so there are concerns by experts that it's just mere talk and nothing. I don't know what you think, but I'll be glad to share it with the rest of the world.
When Professor Enin says, in terms of our state of preparedness, it's zero, I just... Anyway, so one or two calls and then we can sew it up. Of course, coming up after that, we'll have a Joy News Desk and a whole lot more to discuss, a lot more to chew on by way of information that you ought to know on some of these self-same subjects that we've been discussing on the show. But Bernice?
Well, I'm not sure if people are calling the other number, but
I guess that could be the problem. And my bad for leading you down that road. There's a new number that we're using now.
Yes, I mean, you can keep that down. Yes. So you can keep that down, and then you can give us a call anytime during the show so that we hear what you have to say.
Okay,
great. We have a caller, Issa from Tamale. Thank you, Issa. Let's hear you.
Yeah. So the issue about people who have been sent out and trained, brought back to Ghana, who are those people? Do we know them? And what is the evidence? Do we have to the effect that people have been sent abroad, trained and back? You see,
Hello, Issa.
We're limited on time, Issa, so just go ahead.
In Ghana, if there's going to be any terrorist attack in Ghana, it's going to be within Ghana, not outside Ghana. Nobody can come outside and do anything. That's the percent of Ghana. So what the government should understand is to satisfy Ghanaians first and stop thinking about,
Yeah, we are listening to you, Issa.
Yeah, so I'm saying that the government should rather be concerned about the plight of Ghanaians and stop raising this unnecessary alarm.
All right, Issa, we're grateful. We're immensely grateful for your time. I think the point is made.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Seidu in the Upper West.
Yeah, and I'm sure if Seidu... Hello, Seidu?
Hello.
Hi, Seidu. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Let's hear you.
I'm just talking about when you look at the national security threat, I think it is not enough when you come to our area, we are just border between Tumu and Faso, and where security are and around is very disappointed. The security didn't go to the border town; they are just within inside the town. At least if there's unapproved road, plain unapproved road, they should have even sit at the villages near Burkina.
Right, Seydou. Thank you for calling us to share your thoughts with us. So, Benjamin, what Seydou basically is saying is that they're not seeing anything on the ground where they are. He says he lives in a town bordering a neighboring country. So, they want to see more. Well, that's all time will permit us, Benjamin. And
well, we've been having those hard discussions, and we'll continue bringing them to you as and when there are newer developments. But from us here, it is
goodbye. Thank you so much. And don't forget, tomorrow at 6 a.m. we are back again discussing issues that matter to you. Up next is News Desk.